Chapter 16, The Underworld. Begin all acts and thinking by using Al-Kalim the All. Tablet 1. Tammuz and those who were faithful to him. 19 times 6 equals 114. Lo, for the brother who slumbers the city cries, find me, O brother, brethren of the universe, find me, O shepherd, master Tammuz. For the child who makes glad is placed no more. 7 holy Anini, elders who have the 7 keys to the underworld in Iana lament. For the far removed there is wailing. Oh yes, me, my child, the far removed. My Demuzi, Tammuz, true blood, the healer, the far removed. The Messiah, the anointer, the far removed. For the sacred cedar of Lebanon, where the mother Ishtar bore him, in Iana, the high mountains and low plains, there is weeping, wailing for the house of the Yahweh they raise. The wailing is for the plants, and the first lament is, they grow not. The wailing is for the barley, the ears grow not. For the habitations and the flocks it is, they produce not. For the perishing wedded ones, for perishing children it is, the dark-haired people create not. The wailing for the great river Faratu, it brings the flood no more. The wailing is for the fields of mortals, the gunu grows no more. The wailing is for the fish ponds, the Dasahar of Asher, a fish spawn not. The wailing is for the canebrake, the fallen stalks grow not. The wailing is for the forests, the tamarisks, the root of the date grow not. The wailing is for the highlands, the masgam trees of fruit grow not. The wailing is for the garden storehouse, honey and wine are produced not. The wailing is for the meadows, the bounty of the garden, the silhu plants grow not. The wailing is for the palace, life unto distant days is not. The raging floods has brought him low, him that has taken his way to Shambhala, the lower world. Unto Aralu, the Anunnaki who captured Tammuz for Nergal, unto the plain of Inferno Agartha, she Ishtar came. He of the loud cry, the Galu demon, why has he left me desolate? O Galu, master of devastation, why have you taken him? In the flood of the shore of the Faratu Euphrates, why have you taken him? Him of the plains, why have they slain? The shepherd, the wise one, the man sorrows, why have they slain? The lady of the vinestalk, with the lambs in caves languishes. The Lord shepherd of folds lives no more. The husband of the heavenly queen lives no more. The master of the cattle stores lives no more. A tamarisk which is in the garden has no water to drink, whose foliage on the plains sends forth no twig. A plant which they water no more in the pot, whose roots are torn away. A herb in the garden has no water to drink. Amongst the garden flowers he slumber. Amongst the garden flowers he is cast away. When he slumbers, the sheep and lambs slumber also. When he slumbers, the she-goat and the kid slumber also. The pure maiden from the dark chamber hastened. In the flood not do lie. In the hurricane not dost thou lie. As a child in sunken boat, not dost thou lie. As one grown great in the submerged grain, not dost thou lie. In the lightning and the whirlwind, not dost thou lie. In the fields for the brother of Tammuz, called Baal-Hadad, in his field she wept with others. Aralu has seized him away. The afflicted, my hero, sage Nanamna, Enlil of the earth, my hero Gaga, who raises from the ocean, let us bewail. For the mighty hero Pan with flute playing, for the brother Abel in the field she wept. They have taken, where have they taken? The desolate land has taken, the flood has taken Tammuz Adonis. Amma Usagal Anan, mate to Erishkigal, I know has taken place. The shining ocean to thy destiny has taken thee. The flood is transported, the flood has seized thee into Hades Shambhala. O queen of the great palace in thy abode, the glory of thy greatness I will rehearse. Wailing for the cattle of the plains dissolve, milk for the lambs of the sheepfolds restore. O my sister, as one nameless I sit before you, to which Erishkigal replies, O child begotten courtesan, thy cry sounds aloud, where the Nergal my husband and my Yahweh dwell. The city of thy consort Tammuz Adonis thou seekest. Anini, thy 7 bridegroom attendants in the chamber of repose shall place him with you. Anini, truly queen of all decrees I am, and Elo with me rivals not. To which Anini replies, queen of the vast house in thy abode, the glory of thy greatness I will rehearse. In the firmament of the skies is my star, straightway restore. A watchman at the gates of the underworld replies, O Anini, go not, the queen of the great house, not shouldn't you know not to enter. Not shalt thou press forward, not shalt thou know. O Anini, not shalt thou know, not shalt thou enter. Not shalt thou know, seeingst thou wouldest know. But the maiden Ishtar said, the maiden went to the darkness. Queen am I, Ishtar said, the maiden went to the darkness. To him, seized away a beloved, not should she go unto the darkness of Shambhala. In the place of desolation, among the hungry ones, she should not sit. O wanderer, wanderer, my brother wanderer, in the fields of Aralu, wanderer, my brother wanderer, the scorching heat, verily, verily, the soul of life destroys. Into the never-resting place she entered, set herself before him, ewe and her lamb, lamb and her ewe, lo, they are scattered. Mount up, thither and prepare to go. The shepherd spoke to this sister, my sister, see, the lamb finds not its way to its mother. His sister, she whose heart rests not, gave answer, be merciful, O brother, O Zularama, why have you not ascended? Who shall bring the floods forever? Tammuz the Yahweh slumbers, in woe they sigh much. The sacred consort of the heavenly queen, the Yahweh Nadimad Enki slumbers, in woe they sigh much. My ruler Tammuz, you who are hurried away, cruelly wast thou carried away. Faithful son you are, you who are hurried away, cruelly was you carried away. Youth is yours, brother of mother Belisiri, who was cruelly carried away. The work is restrained, thy shekel is heavy, it is given to you who was cruelly carried away. The shining crown from thy head is divested, thy fallen head restore. The shining sumi from thy side is divested, thy fallen side restore. The shining star from thy hand is divested, the fallen hand restore. The long shining foot ring from thy foot is divested, thy fallen foot restore. Because the master has gone forth, in his sheepfolds there is no creating. Because Tammuz has gone forth, in his sheepfolds there is no creating. When awakened from his lethargy, the Elo replies to his mother Elo, and the interceding reptilians. The sheep of my shepherds I will restore, the sheep of my pasture I will restore. O Galu demon, be not woeful, of itself the seed will spring forth. Shamas, son stood up before him, in want of him his hand he raised. The mother sheep desolated, who will revive? Tablet 2. Ishtar goes to Kanergi. 19 times 6 equals 114. Lo. To Kanergi, also called Shambhala and Agata, or Sijin, and Abu Kabais, the prison in the underworld, land of no return. Ishtar, daughter of Nana Sin, from which the name Suen, also known as Zuen, came, was determined to go to the dark house, dwelling of Urkala, the great cities of the Anunnaki, to the house where travelling is one way only. To the house where travelling is one way only, to the house where those who enter are deprived of light, where dust is their food, clay is their bread. They see no light, they dwell in darkness, they are clothed like bird, with feathers over the door and the bolt. Dust has settled. Ishtar, when she arrived at the gate of Kanergi, the underworld, she addressed her words to the keeper of the gate. Here, gatekeeper, open the gate for me, open your gate for me to come in. If you do not open the gate for me to come in, I shall smash the door and shatter the bolt. I shall smash the doorpost and overturn the doors. I shall raise up the dead, and they shall eat the living. The dead shall outnumber the living. The gatekeeper made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the great Ishtar, stop, lady, do not break it down. Let me go and report your words to Queen Erishkigal. The gatekeeper went in and spoke to Erishkigal. Here she is, your sister Ishtar, daughter of Nanasin and Ningal, who holds the great Keputoi. Stirs up the Apsu sub-temple in Nadiman's presence, where the secrets are kept. When Erishkigal heard this, her face grew livid as cut tamarisk, as the roots of the date. Her lips grew as dark as the rim of a Kaninu vessel. What brings her to me? Surely not because I drink the water of the Anunnaki. I eat clay for bread. I drink muddy water for beer. I have to weep for the young men forced to abandon their sweethearts. I have to weep for the girls wrenched from their lovers' laps. For the infant child I have to weep, expelled before its time. Go, gatekeeper, open your gate to her. Treat her according to the ancient rites. The gatekeeper went, he opened the gates to her. Enter, my lady, may Kutha give you joy. May the palace of Kanergi, the underworld, be glad to see you. He let her in through the first door, but stripped off and took away the great crown on her head. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the great crown on my head? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the second door, but stripped off and took away the rings on her ears. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the rings in my ears? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the third door, but stripped off and took away the beads round her neck. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the beads round my neck? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the fourth door, but stripped off and took away the toggle pins at her breast. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the toggle pins at my breast? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the fifth door, but stripped off and took away the girdle of birthstones round her waist. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the girdle of birthstones round my waist? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the sixth door, but stripped off and took away the bangles on her wrists and ankles. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the bangles on my wrists and ankles? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. He let her in through the seventh door, but stripped off and took away the proud garment of her body. Gatekeeper, why have you taken away the proud garment of my body? Go in, my lady, such are the rights of the mistress of the earth. As soon as Ishtar went down to Kanergi, the underworld, Ereshkigal looked at her and trembled before her. Ishtar did not deliberate, but leaned over her. Ereshkigal made her voice heard and spoke, addressed her words to Namta, her chief. Go, Namta, ruler of my court, send out her 60 diseases of evil. Diseases of the eyes to her eyes, diseases of the arms to her arms, diseases of the feet to her feet, diseases of the heart to her heart, diseases of the head to her head, to every part of her in her chest after Ishtar, the mistress of the Muzi. Scientists had gone down to Kanergi, the underworld. No bull mounted a cow, no donkey impregnated a Jenny, no young man impregnated a girl in the street. The young man slept in his private room, the girl slept in the company of her friends. Then Papsukul, chief of the great Anunnaki, hung his head, his face became gloomy. He wore mourning cloths, his hair was unkempt and dejected. He went and wept before Sin, his father, his tears flowed freely before King Nadimad. Ishtar has gone down to the earth and has not come up again. As soon as Ishtar went down to Kanergi Shambhala and has not come up again, no bull mounted a cow, no donkey impregnated a Jenny, no young man impregnated a girl in the street. The young man has slept in his private room, the girl has slept in the company of her friends. Nadimad, in the wisdom of his heart, created a person. He created good looks, the playboy. Come, good looks, set your face towards the gate of Kanergi, the underworld. The 7 gates of Kanergi, the underworld, shall be opened for you. Ereshkigal shall look at you and be glad to see you. When she is relaxed, her mood will lighten. Get her to swear the oath by the great Anunnaki. Raise your head, pay attention to the water skin, saying, Hey, my lady, let them give me the water skin that I may drink from it. And so it happened. But when Ereshkigal heard this, she struck her thigh and bit her finger. You have made a request of me that should not have been made. Come, good looks, I shall curse you with a great curse. I shall decree for you a fate that shall never be forgotten. Bread gleaned from the city's plough shall be your only drinking place. The shade of a city wall your only standing place. Threshold steps your only sitting place. The drunkard and the thirsty shall slap your cheek. Ereshkigal made her voice heard and spoke. She addressed her words to Namta, her chief. Go, Namta, knock at Egugina, decorate the threshold steps with coral, bring the Anunnaki out and seat them on golden thrones. Sprinkle Ishtar with the waters of life and conduct her into my presence. Namtar went, knocked at Egugina, decorated the threshold steps with coral, brought out the Anunnaki, seat them on golden thrones, sprinkled Ishtar with the waters of life and brought her to her sister. He let her out through the first door and gave her back the proud garments of her body. He let her out through the second door and gave her back the bangles for her wrists and ankles. He let her out through the third door and gave her back the girdle of birthstones round her waist. He let her out through the fourth door and gave her back the toggle pins at her breast. He let her out through the fifth door and gave her back the beads around her neck. He let her out through the sixth and gave her back the great crown for her head. Swear that she has paid you her ransom, and give her back in exchange for him, for Dumuzi, the lover of her youth. Wash him with pure water, anoint him in red robe, let the lapis lazuli pipe play, let party girls raise a loud lament. Then Balili tore off her jewelry. Her lap was filled with eye stones. Balili heard the lament of her brother. She struck the jewelry from her body, the eye stones with which the front of the wild cow was filled. You shall not rob me forever of my beloved brother. On the day when the Muzi comes back up, and the lapis lazuli pipe and the carnelian ring comes up with him, when male and female mourners come up with him, the dead shall come up and smell the smoke offering. Say this of Ishtar and her kind. I seek refuge in the sustainer of Shakar, from the evil of what has become of his creation, and from the evils of the darkest point of shadow hour, when they do their evil spells, as it overtakes the daylight, and the evil of the malignant witch Ishtar and her witchcraft, and from the evil of the envious Enki as he envies Enlil. Tablet 3. Let me speak to you on Shambhala and the beings of it. 19 times 6 equals 114. Lo. Shambhala is the capital of the biggest subterranean world. This great Shambhala gets its name from Sham, which means scent, and Allah, meaning the most beautiful sense of Allah. A trait of those beings who visit or who dwell in Shambhala is that their bodies carry a distinctive sweet scent. It's a scent of the presence of Allah. Shambhala has been called many things. The Haitians call on a cobra deity of wisdom and fertility named Dambala. The most common term, as taught by their malevolent beings, is hell. Thus the term "Oh hell" or "hello," a common greeting of the Satanists, simply meaning hell is low. When "Oh hell" is used in the Torah, it's for a tent, or it is in reference to the sacred tent of Jehovah, a tabernacle. You find the word "Oh hell." They are the sacred tents of Yahuwah. The sacred tabernacle refers to the inner city called Shambhala or Argata. Fear not, for in your secular teachings you have been taught also of Shambhala, yet it was called hell, where the wicked will go to be tormented by malicious evil beings called demons, overseen by Satan, the father of evil. A word found in the Torah is evil, and means a despiser of wisdom, a quarrelsome person, a being without morals, or in the case of the Islamic world it's Malik. The fact that subterranean worlds exist is quite ancient. In all of the teachings of the Egyptians, Zoo, Aztecs, Hindus, Mayans and Japanese are legends of the existence of an underworld. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a strange human boatman had charge of the souls of the dead. The boatman would either transport the human soul up into the region of the stars, or if the soul needed some more basic training or possibly more discipline, the boatman would pilot the souls along the river Styx. And this river led deep down into the interior of the earth. Many of the chambers of the pyramids lead to the inner world. In a small village of Castle Paula in the year 1902 AD, workmen who were digging a well literally fell into the earth. What they discovered was the outer room of a Maltese cave entrance. The well was being dug for a house which was on the main street, named Hypogeum of House of Flenti, named after the street beneath, in which it was discovered. A hypogeum is the Latin name for an underground structure. Later, this series of underground rooms were discovered to have been located in the middle of an ancient Neolithic village. From the construction of the entrance stones, it is now assumed at certain times human sacrifices were chained before the entrance. The entrance of the walls and ceilings of some of the passageways and rooms have been found to be decorated with red ochre and primitive art designs. However, when first discovered, the 3 caves were crammed with as many as 30,000 skeletons of men, women and children. In South and Central America, as well as Mexico, the ancient people did acknowledge the existence of subterranean caverns, chambers or tunnels. The Zoo Aztecs of Mexico have faith that just as there are 13 heavens, sometimes 9 or 12, there are 9 subterranean levels through which the deceased must pass before reaching the underworld. Mictlan, land of the dead, is also called Chico na Mictlan, the 9th place of the dead. The lord of this underworld is called Mictlan Tecutli, the lord of the dead. How true this hell is, for it is within one of the caverns of the planet called Sheol. The Greeks call it Hades, the ancient Egyptians called it Umduat, where disagreeable humans are sentenced into the malicious hands of the gargoyles and leprechauns, headed by a great reptilian who wears the name Satan. You have been taught by religion that hell is somewhere down there. It has also been referred to as a sort of in-between place known as purgatory or limbo for souls, and neither of these words can be found in the scriptures of which they used to preach from. There are 2 words used in the New Testament for hell, Hades and Gehenna. The Quran mentions hells and has 7 different words for hell. This is the place that religion teaches is within the earth, where human beings will go if they should be so unlucky as to not make the grade on the surface of the earth. Now, regardless to what hell is called, each religion teaches that this is the dwelling place of Leviathan, which is a sea demon. In the scriptures that your servant Moses received in the scroll of Exodus, the 20th degree, the 4th verse, and I quote, "You will not make for yourself any idol at all, any likeness in the skies above, or upon the planet Earth, or inside the planet Earth, or under the waters of the planet Earth." Here the Yahuwah of the children of Israel has made it clear that they were not supposed to have any other deities other than him, that reside not on the planet Earth, or in the planet Earth, or in the skies above, or under the waters. And this is the most important point. It says not inside the planet Earth. This is a confession on Yahuwah's behalf that there are other deities besides him that can be worshipped if you choose to disobey. But most of all, that some or at least one live inside the planet Earth. So the Torah confirms a place inside the planet Earth. That would mean Hebrews, Christians and Muslims who accept the Torah as the word of God would have to accept this fact. And not only that, the Quran of the Muslims in the 6th degree and 30th verse states, "And if they're shunning, avoiding the fact, be hard upon you, Muhammad, then if you are able to seek an opening into the planet Tiamat Earth to Shambhala, sent of Allah, or a ladder ascending up into the skies to Malakut, so that you, Muhammad, can bring them a sign, a miracle, and if it pleased the source El Elo, he would gather them unto true guidance, so don't be of the ignorant ones." That is in the pure translation. But lest they say that is my translation, I'll give you theirs. "If their spurning is hard on thy mind, yet if thou were able to seek an Afakan fil ard, tunnel in the ground, or a ladder to the skies, and bring them a sign, what good? If it were God's will, he could gather them together unto true guidance." So as found in the Quran of Allah, which to them has no doubts in it, then don't doubt it. Don't doubt the fact that the Nafakan fil ard, or tunnel into the planet Earth, is to Shambhala. With those facts proven, let us speak first of Shambhala and Agartha, the real place. This place of illumination within the earth has a central sun which is 600 miles in diameter. The inner city is called Agartha, which holds the meaning through the whole. The temple within the subterranean world is called the Golden Palace, or in the Syriac Arabic, Walhalla, meaning place of illumination, or with the golden aura, which is located in the capital called Shambhala, meaning scented by Allah. Shambhala is also known as Eshera. Shambhala itself is the holy place where the earthly world links with the higher states of consciousness. In the East, they know there exist two Shambhalas, an earthly and an invisible Shambhala. Many speculations have been made about the location of the earthly Shambhala. Certain indications put this place in the extreme north, explaining that the rays of the Aurora Borealis are the rays of the invisible Shambhala. However, the Aurora Borealis is simply a reflection of the central sun, also called the Black Sun. Shambhala is made from the atoms of the 5 elements, with their potentialities, projected into the center of unconditioned empty space. Some say that Shambhala is the hidden city of goodness and can be reached through meditation, while Agartha is the material subterranean realm, threatening us with eruption. Nearly 6,000 years ago, the inhabitants of the Hyperborean migrated to the region now covered by the Gobi Desert, and there founded a new seat. People flocked from all directions to this center of the world. They enjoyed 2,000 years to this great civilization. However, another catastrophe occurred. Its cause is unknown. The surface of the region was devastated, but Agartha survived underground. Many crafts seen by surface people that are aerodynamically built comes from the various caverns beneath the planet Earth, where many beings now dwell. One is occupied by the Earthlings and the Flugel Rods, and another by the Dawani, another by the Greys, another by the Danakiel, and another by the Teros, whose cavern is close to the Danakiel. In the past there were 8 caverns, to date there are far many more. Their aerodynamic construction in itself is a confession of their earthly origin. For those who intergalactically traverse, need not worry themselves with aerodynamics. Shambhala is a galactical united nation, as opposed to the Earth's surface united nation. Shambhala has the largest library and medical library on this side of the galaxy. Shambhala has climate control, for there are no volcanoes and no earthquakes. Environmental control implies that there is disease control, and unlike your world, there are no years, months and days, being that the sun is in the center of the inner world, and the planet is not moving around anything. Your planet is not a solid rock. There are 3 major divisions in the Earth, the inner core, the outer core, and the crust, which is a very thin layer. It is 1,800 miles thick. It is called the mantle, outer core, liquid core. The outer core does not much affect the events of the Earth's surface. However, its fluid motion generates the magnetic field. Because motion is generally latitudinal, like the planetary winds, the magnetic poles tend to lie close to the axis of the rotation. Beneath your very feet is a region whose radius is 6,294 kilometers. The Earth's radius is 3,963 miles from the pyramids in Egypt today. The actual circumference of the Earth is 24,896 miles, and the diameter is 7,926 miles. Chapter 16, The Underworld. Begin all acts and thinking by using El Kalum the All. Tablet 4, The Inhabitants of the Underworld. 19 times 13 equals 247. Lo. When the place that you are living on called Earth was young, it was visited by a race of beings who came from another solar system. These beings are referred to as the Elder Gods, who, with their advances in science and knowledge of DNA and RNA manipulation, the original cloned after Adam were able to live for hundreds of years. They discovered the secrets of living death, and how death is an illness in humans and can be cured, if not prolonged at their weakest point, to not less than 120 years. These elder beings were the Shayuk, or the Riskians, from a planet called Risk in the 19th galaxy Ilion. I am one such being sent to you. We Riskians, before settling here, lived in Arcturus Pleiades, Clarion, in the Orion star constellation. We constructed bases for laboratories on Mars and the Moon, for the cloning and breeding of Adama Earthlings. We left some of our hybrids who made their residence within Shambhala. They were called the Danakiel. Many stayed, others branched off into tribes and moved nearer the surface and set up their caverns. And even others went to the surface and mixed with surface beings and became the Dongalawe and the Danakil. Early human beings that existed on Earth at the time considered them as gods. When the Riskians came here, some went beneath the earth and built a large computer, a mechanical device called mech, from where you get the word Macintosh. The original name was Al-Hisabat. The Disagreeable also built a large computer and called it simply HAL, their Earth name IBM. With these machines, they could scan the surface, pick up on scenes from all over the world, and televise them. They could project both 4- and 3-dimensional images, hologramic pictures and star maps, kill and destroy at will by simply flicking switches, alter the weather, create rain, hail, snow and earthquakes, create tidal waves, volcanoes, hurricanes and viruses, extract thoughts from another person's mind, or implant thought into it. They were able to stimulate any emotion and cure various diseases. They also had mech, which could be used to make clothing, food and other articles. Over a period of time, the inner sun started throwing off radioactive particles which polluted the air breathed into the lungs and accumulated in food and water, causing a shortening of their lifespan by increasing the aging process and causing other effects. The elders, trying to escape, bored underground, hollowing out artificially or modifying already existing natural caverns. With a device similar to a laser beam, they proceeded to build larger cities within the tunnels, connecting them 4 to 20 miles beneath the surface. Many relocated to other planets, while yet some stayed here in their newly carved out caverns and took some of their Hasaba computers. The same applied for the malevolent beings, who relocated and became known as the Halab or Flugoroids, with their massive machines called mech, also called HAL. One of the agreeable elders wanted to make the devices available to the surface dwellers. However, the other group of disagreeable didn't agree because the surface dwellers were unskilled and were not able to use them correctly. While the agreeable elders said simply, let's teach them, send people who they can call scientists, telepathically implant information, and they will get the credit of invention. This higher knowledge will prevent them from destroying the planet in which we also dwell. There was an argument between the two groups, and it was decided, lock it away in a cavern in the earth, so that the surface dwellers couldn't get them. Because of the population problem, their elder race was not able to take all of their own race. The The ones who were left behind began to disintegrate due to the radioactivity of the sun, and after centuries had passed, because of the radioactivity and the unskilled use of massive computers, a large amount of the brains of the other beings that were in the inner world produced a form of hereditary insanity. This group of insane cave dwellers were called the Sumunin, or Samin, Abandoners, or as you know them, the Deros. They are a combination of the words detrimental and robots. The Sumunin really exist. They are born by hatching from eggs that are 4 to 6 feet in diameter. They grow to 7 feet and are extremely obese. The Sumunin Deros who live in the caves are degenerated so much in intelligence. They have 2 stomachs, and their digestive system is the same as that of a cow. Deros and cows both chew the cud, meaning when cows eat, they chew their own food, and it goes through the initial stages of digestion, where it reaches a large sac that is before the true stomach. The food is then regurgitated to the mouth for further chewing. This is called chewing the cud. Many people today who are obese are descendants of these Deros. I'm talking about those people who have serious weight problems, weighing over 300 pounds or more, which is not a trait of the elders, the Riskians. The Deros have no fingernails, toenails, nipples, navel or a rectum. Their eyes are silvery grey and glows in the dark. They have blonde eyebrows. Other than that, there's no hair on the body, in a disease called trichotillomania, and they are responsible for trichinosis and trichiasis disease. They have a pinkish greyish colour skin, much like a pig or a souse, having not been exposed to the inner or outer sun. They have no teeth. Their mouth appears to be full of a gummy slimy substance. They are nocturnal and hear extremely well. They are not very peaceful and have a strong dislike for your race of human beings. They are very human in appearance, yet far from it. Their noses are long trunk-like, which is very similar to that of an elephant. They contend that the planet Earth was theirs and will be theirs again one day. There is another group called the Sunanins, or the Sinians, or as you know them, the Teros. The Sumunin Deros were for the disagreeable people, and the Sunanins Teros were for the agreeable people. The Teros, which is short from integrative or constructive, are a subsurface or constructive race that usually keep the Deros in check. The Teros, that have an abundance of pigmentation in their skin, are descendants of their elder gods from the planet Jomon and the star Arcturus in the Boots constellation, also called Plowman Herdsman. Boots is shaped like a kite, and the Arcturus is the Boots constellation, the red giant 4th brightest star in the heaven, where much mixing did take place. They have 48 chromosomes, and when bred with certain humans, cause the defect of 47 chromosomes, producing what is commonly called Down syndrome, as found in all the races of the surface people, for the Teros are a mixed race. Down syndrome is a disorder caused by chromosomal abnormalities that develop during germ cell formation. The Teros' chromosomal structure is so much different than that of Earthlings that the mixture caused the disorder. Depending on the gene involved, the child may exhibit the Fall syndrome or show few or no effects. Chromosome 21 is the small human chromosome with no more than 1,500 genes. But the genes are of great interest for the being involved in conditions ranging from cancer to Alzheimer's disease to vision problems. 1 out of every 800 children born on Earth have this trait. Because of the Terrasome planet's atmosphere, their children are usually born with breathing defects as well as congenital heart disease. Being that the food of the Terros is different than that of the Earthlings, these children have poor digestive systems and their immune system is unable to function properly, and they lean towards leukemia. Because they bored further into the earth, they were able to keep their sanity, as well as because of crossbreeding. The Terros took on different forms, and others look so human they can come to the surface and not be noticed. The Terros that are lacking in pigmentation are the descendants from mixing with the flugel rods. There's also living beneath the surface of the planet Earth another group called the Duanis, from which leprechauns, known also as gnomes or dwarf legends, have come. Their mixture with surface people produced dwarfism. A mixture with the Earthlings and the Dawani produced defective DNA. Thus the endocrine system produced an excess amount or hypersecretion, or an insufficient amount called hyposecretion of the hormones. The endocrine gland, also called the pituitary gland, is situated at the base of the human brain, and being the Dawani's brain is in the front of their head, this caused a problem. The pituitary is connected to the hypothalamus by a stalk and is comprised of anterior, intermediate and posterior lobes. The anterior lobe secretes 6 protein hormones, growth hormones, which promotes body growth, prolactin, which stimulates the production of milk, adrenocorticotrophin hormone, which stimulates the adrenal cortex, thyroid stimulating hormone, and 2 gonadotrophic hormones, follicle stimulating hormones, and a luteinizing hormone. The defect in these genes was caused by the collapse of their sun in Sirius and the release of a large amount of radiation, which damaged their glands, called glandular atrophy, and the defect in the enzymes that involved the hormone synthesis, which resulted in lower iodine and resulted in insufficient thyroid hormone. The hypothalamus and pituitary gland are closely related. They modulate the activity of the anterior portion of the pituitary through the release of inhibitor hormones, which travel through a portal venomous system of the anterior pituitary. These neurohormones regulate the release of hormones such as growth hormones, and this GH deficiency leads to growth retardation or dwarfism. Adrenocorticotrophin, HCTH, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, prolactin, luteinizing hormone, LH, and thyroid stimulating hormone, TRH. These defects, caused by a mixture of alien blood with human blood, resulted in dwarfism as you know it today. Originally, the Dawanis came from Canis Major. They were the dwarfs of the star Sirius as opposed to the giant Shaggies, their oppressors. They shared the same planet, but they were agreeable beings who came to Earth many millions of years ago from the Sirius star constellation. The Deros are constantly in conflict with the Dawanis, who hold the same faith that they too will take over the planet one day. The Dawanis look like porcupines, meaning their hair sticks straight up. This abnormality in the endocrine gland resulted in their appearance, which is called hirsutism, the covering of the body with thick hair. They master surface information and study intensely, mastering all the finer things that the Earth's surface provides. They aspire to be like the elite of the human race, yet have no interest in coexisting with human beings on the surface who they see as killers without a purpose. They are like references on Earth, meaning they know everything that is happening on the surface of the Earth. There are caverns in the inner world that are occupied by extraterrestrials. This does not include Agartha. In the 1970s, 4 of the caverns were occupied and 2 of them were unoccupied. Today, there are over 20 caverns, some even occupied by surface people and hidden secret societies, such as the Illuminati Society, who are in cahoots with the disagreeable extraterrestrials and have meetings beneath the Antarctica, where various different species gather together to plot the overthrow and control of the surface. Today, there is air flowing in and out of the Earth. What you people tend to forget is that the Earth is hollow and has a sun 600 miles in diameter. Nothing is solid, not even the human body. Rocks, which appear solid, all have air pockets. The caverns were there naturally. Some of them have been hollowed out by beings. The caverns are very large. Believe it or not, there is a cavern connecting to Australia and through the Atlantic Ocean. This is why they don't have to come in contact with surface dwellers, which would be like you who live on the Earth. The humanoid type extraterrestrials are making shuttles to transport themselves from one place to the next. The ones that are humans have to travel in your time and space. They have to do things according to how time on Earth is governed. They have created what is called a star gateway, where they can step through and interdimensionally transport themselves. They are an advanced society by far, and have surpassed the people on the surface of the Earth in technology. They use power called blast electricity, whose source is from the compression of air and its connection with electricity. This ties in with the shifting of weights, which was the secret to the building of the pyramids. They also get their power from the energy grid that surrounds the planet Earth. A grid is a network of uniformly spaced horizontal and perpendicular lines, specifically ones used for locating points by means of a system of coordinates. This is one of the main reasons why extraterrestrials want your planet. The magnetic field is one of the most valuable assets on your planet because it has an endless amount of free energy. The poles of the grid were separated at distances from the north geometric pole, and this arrangement set up a series of geometric harmonics which were directly related to the speed of light, mass and gravity. The interaction of the two grids created a harmonic resonance, which in turn formed a third resonant grid. The theoretical position for the third grid poles on the southern hemisphere are as follows. Grid pole A equals latitude 72.4266 degrees longitude, 50 degrees west, 1054.4 minutes of the arc from the North Pole. Grid pole B equals latitude 78.4266 degrees longitude, 105 degrees west, 694.4 minutes of the arc from the North Pole resultant. Grid pole C equals latitude 75.6 degrees longitude, 97.5 degrees west, 664 minutes from the arc of the North Pole. The reciprocal positions will give a similar value for the southern hemisphere. A grid is an intelligent geometrical pattern into which the Earth grid is also known as the crystalline Earth. It is very ancient and has been utilized by a number of civilizations. The Earth and its energies are organized. The geometrical patterns of the Earth grid is energetic in nature. The Earth's energy is organized into a precise web, was once and can be again the source of a free and inexhaustible supply of power, once powering older civilizations of high technological achievement. Some say that the grid is an interactive workshop for the purposes of aligning humans with the planetary energies through the megalithic temple. Each grid is seen as a living hologram of the organization of the solar system, intricately linked with the life and destiny of human beings. Some of the significant features of the major grid intersections: Giza, the Great Pyramid; Tiamat Oilfield, USSR; Lake Baikal, USSR; many unique plants and animals; Hudson Bay, present location of the North Magnetic Pole; Northern British Isles, Mayer's Howe, Ring of Roger Callanish; Maheo Diorama Empire culture, Zion Pyramids, which are the largest in the world; Southern Japan, Dragon's Triangle, great seismic activity; Hamakulia, nearby lies Hawaii, scene of high volcanic and earthquake activity; the sophisticated canal civilization of Kibalia, Bimini, the site of a huge man-made walls underwater discovered in 1969 AD; the megalithic Axum, the Coptic Christian center in Ethiopia; Bangkok and Angkor Wat, Sarawak, Borneo; Pohnpei Island, Micronesia, site of the megalithic city on Nan Manol; Lima, Peru, boundary of the Nazca Plate Pisco; Gabon, West Africa; Zimbabwe with its ancient mines and structures; the Maralinga atomic test site; Easter Island and its megaliths; the Coral Castles, built by Ed Leedskalnin. The West Lobe is what pulled Florida down and opened the Keys area up. The East Lobe is the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle of Florida, when active, is a powerful diagmatic levitator. The center of the Earth is a special base controlled by benevolent beings called the Danakiel, whose original home is in Risk, which is located in the 19th galaxy called Ilion. They settled throughout the continent of Africa and became known what is today as the Dongala, or the Dongola tribe of northern Sudan, and spread as far down as northern Ethiopia, or Ether Utopia. Malevolent or negative beings are allowed to go into the cities, however, they live in the caverns. Thus, there are three main races on the planet. The Flugelrods and the Deros are related to the Karkasu, the Teros are related to the Orientals, and the Danakiel and the Duanis are related to the Nagaru in the form of Watusi and Pygmy. They bred with the Danakiel and the Duanis, of which the great master Imhotep, who was a little person, a product of his ancestors mixing with the original Pygmy. While they went into the caverns beneath the waterfalls during the meteorite shower that took place 2,250,000 years ago. This was at the end of the fourth sun cycle, when the Pygmies went and lived inside the great city of Shambhala. These Pygmies or dwarfs were also called the Zizan. The Ashanti tribe of Ghana, Africa, called them Mawetja, while the Watusi went inside the caves of Europa, named after their female deity, the daughter of Agana. There is a city within the inner earth called Rainbow City. Countless of millions of years ago, humanoid greys called Ramadians, created by the Riskians and then given their freedom, came to rule an empire of planets stretching over 100 galaxies. At some point in their conquests, the ancient humans encountered the race of reptilians who were to become their deadly enemy. The snake people and the ancients battled for thousands of years, with the advantage passing first to one side and then the other. However, it became clear the snake people had won. They chased the humanoid race from planet to planet, scattering the remnants of the humanoid empire to a few lonely worlds. One of them, Mars, known as the Red Planet, was for hundreds of generations of the ancients a hospitable home. However, as time passed, the ancients realized that Mars was dying. Its oxygen and water were slowly evaporating into space. The great ruler of Mars sent a fleet of spaceships to Earth to investigate its potential as a new home. The scouting party returned full of praise for the planet Earth, especially the subtropic Antarctic continent. So the great ruler told several thousand of his subjects they were to leave and prepare a way on the new world. They settled in the Antarctica and built 7 great cities there, modelled after the cities on Mars. Each had a distinctive colour and was called the Green City or the Blue City or the Red City. The greatest of all was Rainbow City. It was called this because it was constructed entirely of plastic and all colours of the rainbow. The Rainbow City sat deserted for 1,000,000 years. It alone of the 7 cities was free of ice, for hot springs beneath the city kept its surrounding valley at room temperature, encircled by a wall of ice, then 1,000 feet high. Rainbow City has remained hidden from Antarctic explorers to this day, since the technology of the ancients was infinitely superior to that of the surface dwellers. The city was found with all of its incredible machinery running as well as it had when the city was built 2.5 million years ago. However, many people don't know it. Plastic is a relatively new product to humans. Plastic was introduced to you no more than 50 years ago. It is one of the many things that was given to you by extraterrestrial beings. There are beings that direct the crafts into the planet Earth, and they go into the center of the Earth. There is a 15-mile long computer in the center of the Earth that has been reactivated in 1904 AD. This is why there is a hum in the Earth. There is a mountain called Shasta that leads to one of the caverns in the inner Earth. The mountain was named after a California tribe of Native Americans called the Shasta. The computer sends out signals to the craft coming in so they can come into the Earth without being detected. The crafts who don't pay attention to the signals usually get shot right out of the sky by humans. There are entrances all over this planet Earth. Many are found in caves well hidden and exists in as many places on the Earth as there are in the Earth. In order to enter these caverns, you must know where the entrances are, like the polar regions. These entrances will lead you to a whole different tropical environment in such places as Peru, Brazil, Guatemala, as well as Arizona, the North and South Poles, Africa, Germany, Egypt, the Himalayas and Montana. So what is hell to one is paradise to another. Shambhala and Agartha is as much as a reality as Egypt and Greece. The beings that inhabit Agartha are responsible for the climatic changes that are affecting the planet Earth and the inhabitants of it. As the planet Earth, known as Gaia, is beginning to defend herself against the destructive surface people, such things as nature germ warfare will take place, viruses will plague the Earth, massive earthquakes and landslides and floods. All these are signs of the times. It is important for the wise to return to nature and a natural way of life, respecting the system of things. Then and only then will the gates of heaven and the gates of Shambhala be opened for your re-entry, in acceptance to the great and ancient family of the deities. This is how it was recorded, and this is how it will be.
Chapter 17. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalum the All. Tablet 1, Gilgamesh. 19 times 29 equals 551. Lo! Of him who found out all things, I of him who experienced everything, I shall teach the whole. He searched the lands to teach everywhere. He who experienced the whole gained complete wisdom. He found out what was the secret and uncovered what was hidden. He brought back a tale of times before the flood. He had journeyed far and wide, weary and at last resigned. He engraved all toils on a memorial monument of stone. He had the wall of Uruk built, the sheepfold of holiest Eanna, the pure treasury. See its wall, which is like a copper band, survey its battlements, which nobody else can match, take the threshold, which is from time immemorial approach Eanna, the home of Ishtar, which no future ruler nor any man will ever match. Go up onto the wall of Uruk and walk around. Inspect the foundation platform and scrutinize the brickwork. Testify that its brick are baked bricks and that the 7 counselors must have laid its foundations. 1 square mile is city, 1 square mile are orchards, 1 square mile is clay pits, as well as the open ground of Ishtar's temple. 3 square miles and the open ground comprise Uruk. Look for the copper the tablet box, undo its bronze lock, open the door to its secret, lift out the lapis lazuli tablet and read it. The story of that man, Gilgamesh, who went through all kinds of sufferings. He was superior to other rulers, a warrior master of great stature, a hero born of Uruk, a goring wad bull. He marches at the front as leader. He goes behind, the support of his brothers, a strong net, the protection of his men, the raging flood wave, which can destroy even a stone wall. Son of Lugalbanda, Gilgamesh, perfect in strength, son of the lofty cow, the wad cow Ninsen. He is Gilgamesh, perfect in splendor, who opened up passes in the mountains, who could dig pits even in the mountainside, who crossed the ocean, the broad seas, as far as the sunrise, who inspected the edges of the world, kept searching for eternal life, who reached Utnapishtim the far distant, by force, who restored to their rightful place cult centers and temples which the flood had ruined. There is nobody among the rulers of teeming humanity, who can compare with him, who can say I am ruler beside Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was named from birth for fame. 2/3 of him was divine, and 1/3 mortal. Beleti too, who is the mistress of the Anunnaki, who is also known as Ninkur-Sag or Mami, and Ururu designed the shape of his body, made his form perfect. As the Anunnaki, he was proud and noble. In Uruk the sheepfold he would walk about, show himself superior. His head held high like a wild bull, he had no rival, and at his puku, his weapons would rise up, his comrades have to rise up. The young men of Uruk became dejected in their private quarters. Gilgamesh would not leave any son alone for his father. Day and shadow hour his behavior changed and was overbearing. He was the shepherd. He was their shepherd also, yet he was powerful, superb, knowledgeable and expert. Gilgamesh would not leave young girls alone, the daughters of warriors, the brides of young men. The Allahum often heard their complaints. The Agigis of heaven and also the ruler of Uruk. Did Aram, who is called Mami, really create such a rampant wild bull? Is there no rival at the Puku? His weapons rise up, his comrades have to rise up. Anu, who is El, often hears their complaints. They called upon the great Ururu, also known as Mami. You, Aram, you created mankind, did you not? Now create someone for him, to match his hunger. The desire of his loins is great and they are the taker of his energies. Let them be regular rivals, and let Uruk be allowed peace. When Ururu heard this, she created inside herself the word control of Anu, the El. Ururu washed her hands, pinched off a piece of clay, and cast it out into open country. She created a primitive man, Enkidu the warrior, offspring of Silence the bullman, Sky Bolt of Ninurta. His whole body was shaggy with hair, he was furnished with tresses like a woman. His locks of hair grew luxuriant like gram. He knew neither people nor country, he was dressed as cattle are. With gazelles he eats vegetation, with cattle he quenches his thirst at the watering place. With wild beasts he satisfies his need for water. A hunter, a bandit, came face to face with him beside the watering place. He saw him on 3 successive days beside the watering place. The hunter looked at him, and was dumbstruck to see him. In the problem times he went back into his house and was afraid, stayed mute, was silent, and hid the grief in his innermost being. His face was like that of a long-distance traveler. The hunter made his voice heard and spoke. He said to his father, "Father, there was a young man who came from the mountain. On the land he was strong, he was powerful. His strength was very hard, like a sky bolt of Anu. He walks about on the mountain all the time he eats vegetation with cattle, all the time he puts his feet in the water at the watering place. I am too frightened to approach him. He kept filling in the pits that I dug to trap the beast, he kept pulling out the traps that I laid. He kept helping cattle, wild beasts of open country, to escape my grasp. He will not allow me to work in open country." His father spoke to him, to the hunter of Uruk, Gilgamesh. He worked his open country. His strength is very hard, like a sky bolt of An. Go set your face towards Uruk. You have the strength of a man, take control, lead her forth, and make her like the strong man. When he approaches the cattle at the watering place, she must take off her clothes and reveal her attractions. He will see her and go dose to her. Then his cattle, who has grown up in open country with him, will become alien to him. He listened to the advice of his father. The hunter went off to see Gilgamesh. He took the road, set his face towards Uruk, entered the presence of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to the hunter, "Go, hunter, lead forth the harlot Shamhat, and when he approaches the cattle at the watering place, she must take off her clothes and reveal her attractions. He will see her and go dose to her. Then his cattle, who has grown up in open country with him, will become alien to him." The hunter, Gilgamesh went, he led forth the harlot Shamhat with him, and they took the road, they made the journey. In 3 days they reached the appointed place. Hunter and harlot sat down in their hiding place for 1 day. Then a second, they sat at the watering place. Then cattle arrived at the watering place, they drank. Then wild beasts arrived at the water, they satisfied their need. And he, Enkidu, whose origin is the mountain, who eats vegetation with gazelles, drinks at the watering place with cattle, satisfied his need for water with wild beasts. Shamhat looked at the primitive man, the murderous youth from the depths of open country. "Here he is, Shamhat, bare your bosom, open your legs and let him take in your attractions. Do not pull away, take wind of him. He will see you and come dose to you. Spread open your garments, and let him lie upon you, do for him, the primitive man, as women do. Then his cattle, who has grown up in open country with him, will become alien to him." His love-making he lavished upon her. For 6 days and 7 shadow hours, Enkidu was aroused and poured himself into Shamhat. When he was full with her charms, he set his face towards the open country of his cattle. The gazelles saw Enkidu and scattered, the cattle of the open country kept away from his body. For Enkidu had stripped, his body was too lean. His legs, which used to keep pace with his cattle, were at a standstill. Enkidu had been diminished, he could not run as before. Yet, he had acquired judgment, he had become wiser. He turned back, he sat at the harlot's feet. The harlot was looking at his expression, and he listened attentively to what the harlot said. The harlot spoke to him, "To Enkidu, you have become profound Enkidu, you have become like a Baal. Why should you roam open country with wild beasts? Come, let me take you into Uruk, the sheepfold, to the pure house, the dwelling of Anu and Ishtar, where Gilgamesh is perfect in strength, and is like a wild bull, more powerful than any of the people." She spoke to him, and her speech was acceptable. Knowing in his own mind now, he would seek for a friend. Enkidu spoke to her, to the harlot, "Come, Shamhat, invite me, to the pure house, the holy dwelling of Anu and Ishtar, where Gilgamesh is perfect in strength and is like a wild bull, more powerful than any of the people. Let me challenge him, and I will win in Uruk. I shall be the strongest, I shall go in and alter destiny, one who was born in open country has superior wisdom and strength." Shamhat answered, "Come on, let us go forth and let me please you this way, for you can be pleased in many ways, for there are, I know. Go, Enkidu, into Uruk the sheepfold, where young men are girded with sashes and every day is a feast day, where the drums are beaten, and girls are willing to show off their figures, adorned with joy and full of happiness. In bed at shadow hour, great men enjoy them, O Enkidu. You know nothing of life. Let me show you Gilgamesh, a man of joy and woe. Look at him, observe his face, he is beautiful in manhood, dignified, his whole body is charged with seductive charm. He is more powerful in strength of arms than you. He does not sleep by day or shadow hour. Oh Enkidu, change your plan for punishing him." Shamash loves Gilgamesh, and Anu, and Lil and Enki made him wise. Before you came from the mountains, Gilgamesh was dreaming about you in Uruk. Gilgamesh arose and described a dream. He told it to his mother, "Mother, I saw a dream in the shadow hour. There were stars in the sky for me. And something like a sky bolt of Anu kept falling upon me, and I tried to lift it up, but it was too heavy for me. I tried to turn it over, but I couldn't budge it. The countrymen of Uruk were standing over it. The countrymen had gathered over it, the men crowded over it, the young men massed over it, they kissed its feet like very young children. I love it as a wife, doted on it, I carried it, laid it at your feet, you treated it as equal tone." The wise mother of Gilgamesh, all-knowing overstood, she spoke to her ruler. The wise Ninsen all-knowing overstood, she spoke to Gilgamesh, "When there were stars in the sky for you, and something like a sky bolt of Anu kept falling upon you, you tried to lift it up, but it was too heavy for you, you tried to turn it over, but you couldn't budge it. You carried it, laid it at my feet, I treated it as equal to you, and you loved it as a wife, and doted on it. It means a strong partner shall come to you. He will be the most powerful in strength of arms in the land. His strength will be as great as that of a sky bolt of Anu. You will love him as a wife, you will dote upon him, and he will always keep you safe. That is the meaning of your dream." Gilgamesh spoke to her, to his mother. "Mother, I have had a second dream. An axe was thrown down in the street of Uruk. The sheepfold gathered over it, the countrymen of Uruk stood over it. The land gathered together over it, the men massed over it. I carried it, laid it at your feet. I loved it as a wife, doted upon it, and you treated it as equal to me. The wise cow Ninsen, all-knowing, overstood, she spoke to Gilgamesh, the copper axe which you saw as a man. You will love it as a wife, you will dote upon it, and I shall treat it as equal to you. A strong partner will come to you, one who saves the life of a comrade. He will be the most powerful in strength of arms in the land. His strength will be as great as that of a sky bolt of Anu. Gilgamesh spoke to his mother, let it fall, then, according to the word of Enlil, he great counselor. I shall gain a friend to advise me. Ninsen retold his dreams. Thus, Shamhat heard the dreams of Gilgamesh and told them to Enkidu. The dream means that you will love one another. Enkidu was seated before her in Tiranu full of tears, for he trusted Mulatu, who is Ninlil. Why was he betrayed? They were consulting together by themselves, anger at his decision about what to do, who overstood in his heart the truth, which Shamhat spoke of one garment which is clean. She held him by the hand, and like Alahum who ruled, he bowed, though he was the most powerful in strength of arms in the land. His strength was as great as that of a sky bolt of Anu, and built as sturdy as battlements. The wild cow Ninsen, mother of Gilgamesh, spoke to Gilgamesh, my son. Bitterly he was weeping, seized by pain he brought up to his door his weary body. Bitterly he was weeping from hurt, and Enkidu had no garment. His hair is allowed to hang loose as a beast. He was born in open country, and who can prevail over him? Enkidu stood, listened to him speaking, pondered, and then sat down, and began to cry. His eyes grew dim with tears. His arms slackened, his strength gone. Then they grasped one another and embraced and held each other's hands. Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Enkidu, why are your eyes filled with tears? Enlil has destined him to keep the pine forest safe, to be the terror of people. Humbaba, whose shout is the flood weapon, whose utterance is fire, and whose breath is death, can hear for a distance of 60 leagues through the field of the forest, so who can penetrate his forest? Debility would seize anyone who penetrated his forest. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Enkidu, are you saying that you know the way? Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke to Enkidu, my friend, are they not here? Are there no children there? Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke to Gilgamesh, my friend, were we to go to him, out there Humbaba is waiting. Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke to Enkidu, my friend, we really should prepare. They sat and pondered on things. We made a Hassanu axe, a Pusu axe with a whole talent of bronze for each half of talent. Their swords weighed a whole talent each, their belts weighed a whole talent each. Listen to me, young men of Uruk who know the way. I am adamant. I shall take the road to Humbaba. I shall face unknown opposition. I shall ride along an unknown road. Give me your blessing, since I have decided on the course, that I may enter the city gate of Uruk again in future times and celebrate the New Year festival once again in future years, and take part in the New Year festival in years to come. Let the New Year festival be performed, let joy resound, let Uluru cries ring out in the sight of all. Enkidu gave advice to the elders. The young men of Uruk said, tell him not to go to the pine forest, that journey is not to be undertaken. A man must know the way. The guardian of the pine forest knows the great counselors of Uruk, and rose up and gave an opinion to Gilgamesh. You are still young, Gilgamesh, you are impetuous too, but you do not know what you will find out there. Humbaba, who is known as Hawawa and Tarnush, whose shout is the flood weapon, whose utterance is fire and whose breath is death, can hear. For up to 60 leagues through the deep forests. Whoever goes down to his forest 1 or 2, who, even among the Agigi, can face him? Enlil destined him to keep the pine forest safe, to be the terror of people. Gilgamesh listened to the speech of the great counselors. Do not trust entirely, Gilgamesh, in your own strength. When you have looked long enough, trust to your first blow. He who leads the way will save his comrade. He who knows the paths, he will guide and guard his friend. Let Enkidu go in front of you, he knows the way of the pine forest. He can look at the fight and instruct in the battle. Let Enkidu guard the friend, keep the comrade safe, bring him back safe in person for brides, so that we in our assembly may rely on you as ruler, and that you in turn as ruler may rely on us again. Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Enkidu, come my friend, let us go to the great palace, to Ninsen, the great queen. Gilgamesh rose up and entered into the city. Ninsen, I am adamant. I shall take the distant path to where Humbaba lives. I shall face unknown opposition. I shall ride along an unknown road until the day when, having traveled far and wide, I finally reach the pine forest, until I slay ferocious Humbaba, and exterminate him from the land. Something evil came into your presence. Ninsen paid attention to all the words of Gilgamesh, her son. Now, your offspring shall be dedicated to Shamash came with the oblates of Gilgamesh. Priestesses, devotees, and votaresses. It has put an obligation on Enkidu's shoulders. He, Enkidu, has taken a wife from the Alahum. And he shall bring up daughters of Alahum. Ayan and Enkidu he took to the city. Enkidu addressed his words to Ninsun and made his voice heard. Gilgamesh is going to the pine forest, whether a month, week or day, whether a year, month or day. Let Enkidu guard the friend, keep the comrade safe. Let him bring him back safe in person for brides, so that we in our assembly may rely on you as ruler, and that you in turn as ruler can rely on us again. Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, my friend, turn back from the pine forest, a journey that is not needed. Ninsun entered her chamber at the soap plant. She put on a garment of a queen, adornment of her body. She put on toggle pins and wore her crown on her head. Then she went up onto the roof. She came before Shamash, made a smoke offering, made a Surkanu offering before Shamash and raised her arms. Why did you single out my son Gilgamesh and impose a restless spirit on him? Now you have affected him and he will take the distant path to where Mbaba lives. He faces an unknown struggle. He will ride along an unknown road. Until the day when, having traveled far and wide, he finally reached the pine forest, until he slays ferocious Mbaba, and exterminates from the land something evil which you hate. On the day when you are at the side of Aya, may Aya, the daughter-in-law, not be too fearful of you to commend him to you. Entrust him to the shadow hour watchman, hold the whip of Gilgamesh, for he extinguished the smoke offering and blood offering. He called Enkidu to him and gave his decision. Enkidu, you are a strong man, though not from the same womb as I. At 20 leagues they ate their ration. At 30 leagues they stopped for the shadow hour. 50 leagues they traveled during the day. The distance took from the new moon to the full Lebanon. There they dug a pit in front of Shamash. They refilled their water skins to the brim. Gilgamesh went up onto the mountain, and made his flower offering to Shamash. O mountain, bring me a dream, a favorable one. Enkidu arranged it to be for him, for Gilgamesh. A dust devil passed by, he made him lie down inside the circle and wait. Just like wild barley he wanted blood. Gilgamesh sat with his chin on his knees. Sleep, which spills out over people, overcame him. In the middle watch he finished his sleep. He rose up and said to his friend, my friend, didn't you call me? Then why am I awake? Didn't you touch me? Why am I so upset? Didn't an Alahum pass by? Then why is my flesh so feeble? My friend, I had a dream about this very thing. And the dream that I had was extremely upsetting. At the foot of the mountain I sat, a great rock fell and hit me. We were like flies scattered. He who was born in open country, and Enkidu explained the dream to his friend. My friend, your dream is favorable. The dream is very significant, my friend. The mountain which you saw as a sign means, we shall seize Mbaba, slay him, and cast his corpse onto waste ground. At the light of dawn we shall hear the favorable word of Shamash. At 20 leagues they are their ration. At 30 leagues they stopped for the shadow hour. There they dug a pit in front of Shamash. My friend, this is the explanation of your dream that you dreamt. Mbaba like a great beast fell, and his star fell, and he is no more. His power is finished, until flared up again by his seed. We shall place on top of him a seal. We were furious at the evils of Mbaba, the great beast called Tarnush. We stood over him. And in the daylight hour the word of Shamash was favorable. Heaven cried out, earth groaned. Day grew silent, darkness emerged, lightning flashed, fire broke out. Flames crackled, death rained down. Then the coals which kept falling turned to embers. Let us go back down to open country where we can get advice. Enkidu listened, and made him accept his dream. He spoke to Gilgamesh. Alone they cannot do this, they are strangers, they don't know. It is a slippery path, and one does not travel alone, but two or more than two can. A three-stranded cord is hardest to break, it must be used. A strong lion cannot prevail over it, even to save two of its own cubs. Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, how can I go down into pine forest, or open up the path, when my arms are paralyzed? Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Enkidu, why, my friend, experienced in conflict, who has won battle, you shall have a double mantle of radiance like the great Anunnaki. Your shout shall be as loud as a kettle drum. Paralysis shall leave your arms, and impotence shall leave your loins. Hold my hand, my friend, let us set off. Your heart shall soon bum in delight for conflict. Forget death and think only of life and success. Man is strong, prepared to fight, responsible. He who goes in front and guards his friend's body, shall keep the comrade safe. They shall have established fame for their future. So in time they arrived together. Enforcers of their words, they stood. They stood and admired pine forest. Gazed and gazed at the height of the pines, gazed and gazed at the entrance to the pines, where Mbaba made tracks as he went to and fro. The paths were well trodden and the road was excellent. They beheld the pine mountain, dwelling place of the Anunnaki, shrine of Urnini. The pines held up their luxuriance even on the face of the mountain. Their shade was good, filling one with happiness. Undergrowth burgeoned, entangling the forest. Humbaba made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "The fool Gilgamesh and Enkidu brutish man ought to ask themselves, why have you come to see me? Your friend Enkidu is small fry who does not know his own father. You are so very small that I regard you as I do a turtle or a tortoise, which does not suck its mother's milk, so I do not approach you. Even if I were to kill you, would I satisfy my stomach? Why, oh, Gilgamesh, have you let him reach me? So I shall bite through his windpipe and neck, Gilgamesh, and leave his body for birds of the forest, roaring lions, birds of prey and scavengers." Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Enkidu, "My friend, Humbaba has changed his mood, and fear has come upon him, and my heart trembles lest he change suddenly." Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "My friend, why do you talk like a coward? And your speech was feeble? And you tried to hide? Now, my friend, he has drawn you out. With the blowpipe of the coppersmith for heating will he deal with you. To count back each league swollen once with the heat of a dry day you will feel each league of cold, to dispatch the flood weapon, to lash with a whip. Don't retrace your footsteps. Don't turn back. Make your blows harder." Gilgamesh's tears flowed before Shamash. "Remember what you said in Uruk. Stand there and listen to me." Shamash heard the words of Gilgamesh, scion of Uruk, and said, as soon as a loud voice from the sky calls down to him, "Rush, stand up to him, let him not enter the forest, let him not go down to the wood. Humbaba will not be clothed in 7 cloaks, he will be wearing only 1. 6 are taken off of him. Like a charging wild bull which pierces any in its way. He shouts only once, but fills one with terror. The guardian of the forests will shout only once. Humbaba like a bull will shout." As soon as the swords were removed from the sheaths streaked with verdigris, and the dagger, sword, Humbaba made his voice heard and spoke to them saying, "He will not go, he will not go, may Allah bless me." He struck his head, and matched him. They stirred up the ground with the heels of their feet. Sirara and Lebanon were split apart at their gyrations, white clouds grew black. Death dropped down over them like a fog. Shamash summoned up great tempests against Humbaba, south wind, north wind, east wind, west wind, moaning wind, gale, Saparzik wind, Evilu wind, Asaku wind, wintry wind, tempest, whirlwind. 13 winds rose up at him and Humbaba's face grew dark. He could not charge forwards, he could not go run backwards. Thus, the weapons of Gilgamesh succeeded against Humbaba. Humbaba gasped for breath. He addressed Gilgamesh. "You are young, Gilgamesh, your mother gave birth to you, and you are the offspring of Ninsun. You rose up at the command of Shamash, ruler of the mountain. And you are the scion of Uruk, ruler Gilgamesh. O Gilgamesh, my friend Gilgamesh, I shall make them grow luxuriantly for you in your sight, as many trees as you wish. I shall keep for you myrtle wood, timbers to be the pride of your palace in Uruk." Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "My friend, don't listen to the words of Humbaba. You have found out the nature of my forest, the nature of my dwelling, and now you know all their natures. I should have taken you and slain you at the entrance to my forest's growth. I should have given your flesh to be eaten by the birds of the forest, roaring lions, birds of prey, and scavengers. But now, Enkidu, it is in your power to release me. So tell Gilgamesh to spare my life." Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "My friend, finish him off, slay him, grind him up, that I may survive, Humbaba, the guardian of the pine forest. Do it before the leader Enlil hears about it. Lest the Anunnaki will be filled with fury at us." Enlil and Nippur, Shamash and Sippar, set up an eternal memorial to tell how Gilgamesh slew Humbaba. Humbaba listened and said, "You sit like a shepherd. Now, Enkidu, thus settle in your own release. And tell Gilgamesh that he may save his life. Neither one of them shall outlive his friend Gilgamesh, and Enkidu shall never become old man." Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "My friend, I talk to you, but you don't listen to me." Their dark patch of verdigris, Gilgamesh was cutting down the trees. Enkidu kept tugging at the stumps. Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "My friend, I have had a fully mature pine cut down, the crown of which butted against the sky. I made a door 6 poles high and 2 poles wide. Its doorpost is a cubit feet, its lower and upper hinges are made from a single. Let the Furatu, Euphrates carry it to Nippur." They tied together a raft, they put it down and Enkidu embarked on it, and Gilgamesh took the head of Humbaba. He washed his filthy hair, he cleaned his gear, shook out his locks over his back, threw away his dirty clothes, and put on fresh ones. He clothed himself in robes and tied on a sash. Gilgamesh put his crown on his head. And Ishtar, the princess, raised her eyes to the beauty of Gilgamesh. "Come to me, Gilgamesh, and be my lover. Bestow on me the gift of your fruit. You can be my husband, and I can be your wife. I shall have a chariot of lapis lazuli and gold harnessed for you, with wheels of gold, and horns of elmeshu stone. You shall harness Umu demons as great mules. Enter into our house through the fragrance of pine. When you enter our house, the wonderfully wrought threshold shall kiss your feet. Rulers, nobles, princes shall bow down beneath you. The verdure of mountain and country shall bring you produce. Your goats shall bear triplets, your ewes twins, your loaded donkey shall outpace the mule. Your horses shall run proud at the chariot, your ox shall be unrivaled at the yoke." Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Ishtar, the princess, "What could I give you if I possessed you? I would give you body oil and garments. I would give you food and sustenance. Could I provide you with bread fit for an Allahum? Could I provide you with ale fit for rulers? Could I heap up a robe? If I possess you, you would be like ice, a drafty door that can't keep out winds and gusts, a palace that rejects its own warriors, an elephant which its covering bitumen which stains its carrier, a waterskin which soaks its carrier, a juggernaut which smashes a stone wall, a battering ram which destroys war, a shoe which bites into the foot of its wearer. Which of your lovers lasted forever? Which of your masterful paramours went to heaven? Come, let me describe all your lovers to you. He of the sheep knew him. For Damuzi, the lover of your youth, you decreed that he should keep weeping year after year. You love the colorful alalu bird, but you hit him and broke his wing. He stays in the woods crying my wing. You love the lion, whose strength is complete, but you dug 7 and 7 pits for him. You love the horse, so trustworthy in battle, but you decreed the whip, goad, and lash for him. You decreed that he should gallop 7 leagues non-stop. You decreed that he should be overwrought and thirsty. You decreed that endless weeping for his mother Scylla. You loved the shepherd, herdsman, and chief shepherd, who was always heaping up the glowing ashes for thou, and cooked you lambs for you every day. But you hid him and turned him into a wolf. His own herd boys hunts him down and his dogs tear at his haunches. You loved Ishulianu, your father's gardener, who was always bringing you baskets of dates. They brightened your table every day. You lifted your eyes to him and went to him. My own Ishulianu, let us enjoy your strength, so put your hand and touch our vulva. But Ishulianu said to you, what do you want of me? Did my mother not bake for me, and did I not eat? What I eat with you would be loaves of dishonor and disgrace. Rushes would be my only covering against the cold. You listened as he said this, and you hid him, turned him into a frog, left him to stay amid the fruits of his labors. But the pole goes up no more, his bucket goes down no more. And how about me? You will love me and then treat me just like them. When Ishtar heard this, Ishtar was furious, and went up to heaven. Ishtar went up and wept before her father, and her tears flowed before her mother and too. Father, Gilgamesh, hast shamed me again and again. Gilgamesh spelt out to me, my dishonor and my disgrace. And made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the princess Ishtar, why didn't you accuse Gilgamesh the ruler for yourself, since Gilgamesh spelt out your dishonor and your disgrace? Ishtar made her voice heard and spoke. She said to her father, Father, please give me the bull of heaven, and let me strike Gilgamesh down. Let me capture Gilgamesh in his dwelling. If you don't give me the bull of heaven, I shall strike Gilgamesh. I shall set my face towards the infernal regions, I shall raise up the dead, and they will eat the living, I shall make the dead outnumber the living. And made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the princess Ishtar, on no account should you request the bull of heaven from me. There would be 7 years of chaff in the land of Uruk, you would gather chalk instead of gems, you would raise grass. Ishtar made her voice heard and spoke. She said to her father, I have heaped up a store of grain in Uruk, I have ensured the production of the years of chaff has been gathered. And listened to Ishtar speaking, and he put the bull of heaven's reins in her hands. Ishtar took hold and directed it. When it arrived in the land of Uruk, it went down to the 7 rivers. At the snorting of the bull of heaven a chasm opened up, and 100 young men of Uruk fell into it, 200 young men, 300 young men. At its second snorting another chasm opened up, and another 100 young men of Uruk fell into it, 200 young men, 300 young men fell into it. At its third snorting a chasm opened up, and Enkidu fell into it. But Enkidu leapt out. He seized the bull of heaven by the horns. The bull of heaven blew spittle into his face, with its thick tail it whipped up its dung. Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, my friend, we were too arrogant when we killed Humbaba. How can we give recompense for our action? In between the base of the horns and the neck tendons. Enkidu spun round to the bull of heaven, and seized it by its thick tail, and then Gilgamesh, like a butcher, heroic and brave, plunged his sword in between the base of the horns and the neck tendons. When they had struck the bowl of heaven, they pulled out its innards, set them before Shamash, backed away and prostrated themselves before Shamash. Then the two brothers sat down. Ishtar went up onto the wall of Uruk, the sheepfold. She was contorted with rage. She hurled down curses. That man Gilgamesh who reviled me, has killed the bull of heaven. Enkidu listened to Ishtar saying this, and he pulled out the bull of heaven's shoulder and slapped it into her face. If I could only get at you as that does, I would do the same to you myself. I would hang its intestines on your arms. Ishtar gathered the crimped courtesans, prostitutes and harlots. She arranged for weeping over the bull of heaven's shoulder. Gilgamesh called craftsmen, all the armorers, and the craftsmen admired the thickness of its horns. 30 minas of lapis lazuli was needed for each of their pouring ends. 2 minas of gold was needed for each of their sheathings. 6 score of oil was the capacity of both. He dedicated them for anointing his god. Lugalbanda took them in and hung them on his bed where he slept as head of the family. In the Furatu, Euphrates, they washed their hands and held hands and came, riding through the main street of Uruk. The people of Uruk gathered and gazed at them. Who is finest among the young men? Who is proudest among the males? Gilgamesh is the finest among the young men. Gilgamesh is finest among the males. We knew in our anger there is nobody like him who can please her. Gilgamesh made merry in his palace. Then they lay down. The young men were lying in bed for the shadow hour, and Enkidu lay down and had a dream. Enkidu got up and described the dream. He said to his friend, "My friend, why are the great Anunnaki consulting together?" Then daylight came and Enkidu said to Gilgamesh, "Oh my brother, what a dream I saw last shadow hour." Anu, Enlil and Enki and heavenly Shamash were in the assembly. And Anu said to Enlil, "As they have slain the bull of heaven, so too they have slain Hoa, Humbaba, who guarded the mountains planted with pines." And Anu said, "One of them must die." Enlil replied, "Let Enkidu die, but let Gilgamesh not die." Then heavenly Shamash said to valiant Enlil, "Was it not according to your word that they slew the bull of heaven and Hoa? Should now innocent Enkidu die?" But Enlil turned in anger to heavenly Shamash, saying, "The fact is, you accompanied them daily, like one of their comrades." Enkidu lay down before Gilgamesh, his tears flowing like streams. "Oh my brother is so dear to me. But they are taking me from my brother. And I shall sit among the dead. Never again shall I see my dear brother with my own eyes." Enkidu made his voice heard and spoke. He said to his friend Gilgamesh, "Come in the door." Enkidu lifted up his face. He discussed with the door, "Door, don't you remember the words? I selected the timber for you over 20 leagues, until I had found a fully mature pine. There is no other wood like yours. Your height is 6 poles, your width 2 poles, your doorpost, your lower and upper hinge are made from a single tree. I made you, I carried you to Nippur. Be aware, door, that this was a favor to you, and this was a good deed done for you. I myself raised the axe, I cut you down, loaded you myself onto the raft, I myself put you in temple of Shamash, I myself set you in his gate. I myself set you in Uruk. Now, door, it was I who made you, I who carried you to Nippur. But the ruler who shall arise after me shall go through you. Gilgamesh shall go through your portals, and change my name and put on his own name." He tore out the door and hurled. He kept listening to his words. Straightway, Gilgamesh kept listening to the words of his friend Enkidu, and his tears flowed. Gilgamesh made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Enkidu, "You, who used to be reasonable, the dream was very precious, and the warning awful. Chapter 17. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalum the All. Tablet 2, The Dream. 19 times 39 equals 741. Lo. Enkidu, your lips buzz like flies, they have led a legacy of grieving for next year. The dream has left a legacy of grief for next year. I shall go and offer prayers to the great Anunnaki, I shall search out your Anunnaki, look for you, her, Enlil, the father of the Anunnaki. To Enlil the counselor, father of the Anunnaki, I shall make a statue of you with countless gold. The words he spoke were not like him, what he said did not go back, did not alter. Enkidu raised his head, wept before Shamash, his tears flowed before the rays of the sun. I hereby beseech thou, Shamash, because my fate is different, because the hunter, the brigand, did not let me attain as much as my friend, let the hunter never attain as much as his friend, make his advantage vanish, make his strength less. When he had cursed the hunter as much as he wanted, he decided to curse the harlot too. Come, Shamhat, I shall fix a fate for you, curses that shall not cease forever and ever. I shall curse you with a great curse. Straightway my curses shall rise up against you. You shall never make your voluptuous gestures again, you shall not release you of your young bulls, you shall not let them into the girls' rooms. Filth shall impregnate your lovely lap. The drunkard shall soak your party dress with vomit. Your cosmetic paint shall be the potter's lump of clay. You shall never obtain the best cosmetic oil. Bright silver, people's affluence, shall not accumulate in your house. The crossroads shall be your only sitting place, waste ground your only lying place, the shade of a city wall, your only sitting place. Thorns and spikes shall skin your feet. The drunkard and the thirsty shall slap your cheek, the earth shall shout out against you. The builder shall never plaster the walls of your house. Owls will nest in your roof, beams feasting shall never take place in your house, because pure is in my open country. Shamash heard the utterance of his mouth. Immediately a loud voice called down to him from the sky, Enkidu, why are you cursing my harlot, Shamat, who fed you on food fit for a Anunnaki, gave you ale to drink, fit for kings, clothed you with a great robe, then provided you with Gilgamesh for a fine partner? And now Gilgamesh, the friend who is a brother to you, will lay you to rest on a great bed and lay you to rest on a bed of loving care, and let you stay in a restful dwelling, the dwelling on the left. Princes of the earth will kiss your feet. He will make the people of Uruk weep for thou, mourn for you, and he himself will neglect his appearance after your death. Clothed only in a lion skin, he will roam the open country. Enkidu listened to the speech of Shamash, the warrior. His anger abated, his heart became quiet. Come, Shamhat, I shall change your fate. My utterance, which cursed thou, shall bless you instead. Governors and princes shall love you, the single-leagued man shall smite his thigh for you. The herdsman shall not hold back for you, he shall undo his belt for you. He shall give you ivory, lapis lazuli, and gold, rings and brooches shall be presents for you. Rain shall pour down for him, his storage jars shall be heaped full. The diviner shall lead you into the palace of the Anunnaki. Because of you, the mother of seven, the honored wife, shall be deserted. Then Enkidu wept, for he was sick at heart. He lay down alone. He spoke what was in his mind to his friend. Listen again, my friend. I had a dream in the shadow hour. The sky called out, the earth replied, I was standing in between them. There was a young man, whose face was obscured. His face was like that of an Anzu bird. He had the paws of a lion, he had the claws of an eagle. He seized me by my locks, using great force against me. I hit him, and he jumped like a keputoi, he hit me and forced me down, like a wild bull he trampled on me, he squeezed my whole body. I cried out, save me, my friend, don't desert me. But you were afraid, and did not help me, he hit me and turned me into a dove. Turns my arms, like a bird. He seized me, drove me down to the dark house, dwelling of Urkala's god, to the house which those who enter canst not leave, on the road where traveling is one way only, to the house where those who stay are deprived of light, where dust is their food, and clay their bread. They are clothed, like birds, with feathers, and they see no light, and they dwell in darkness. Over the door and the bolt, dust hast settled. I looked at the house that I had entered, and crowns were heaped up. Like those with crowns who had ruled the land from time immemorial, priests of Anu and Enlil regularly set out cooked meats, set out baked bread, set out cold water from waterskins. In the house of dust that I had entered dwelt the Enu and Lagaru priests, dwelt the Isipu and Lumahu priests, dwelt the Udapsu priests of the great gods, dwelt Atana, dwelt Shakan, dwelt Ereshkigal, the queen of earth. Belitseri, the scribe of earth, was kneeling before her. She was holding a tablet and kept reading aloud to her. She raised her head and looked at me. Who brought this man? I experienced all kinds of troubles. Remember me, my friend. And do not forget what I went through. My friend saw an indescribable dream. From the day he saw the dream, his strength was finished. Enkidu lay there the first day, then a second day. The illness of Enkidu, as he lay in bed, grew worse, his flesh weaker. A third day and a fourth day, the illness of Enkidu grew worse, his flesh weaker. A fifth, sixth and seventh day, eighth, ninth and 10th. The illness of Enkidu grew worse, his flesh weaker. An 11th and 12th day his illness grew worse, his flesh weaker. Enkidu, as he lay in bed grew worse. Gilgamesh cried out, my friend is cursing me. I was afraid of the fight. My friend, who was so strong in the fight, cursed me. When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh said to his friend, Enkidu, my friend, your mother a gazelle, and your father a wild donkey sired you. Their milk was from onagers they reared you, and cattle made you familiar with all the pastures. Enkidu's paths led to the pine forest. They shall weep for you shadow hour and day, never fall silent, weep for you, the elders of the broad city, of Uruk the sheepfold. The summit will bless us after our death. They shall weep for you, the mountains. They shall mourn in the open country as if it were your father, the field as if it were your mother. They shall weep for you, myrtle, cypress, and pine, in the midst of which we armed ourselves in our fury. They shall weep for you, the bear, hyena, leopard, tiger, stag, cheetah, lion, wild bulls, deer, mountain goat, cattle, and other wild beasts of open country. It shall weep for you, the holy river Alaya, along whose bank we used to walk so proudly. It shall weep for you, the pure Euphrates, with whose water and waterskins we used to refresh ourselves. They shall weep for you, the young men of the broad city of Uruk the sheepfold, who watched the fighting when we struck down the bull of heaven. He shall weep for you, the plowman at his plow who extols your name with sweet alala. He shall weep for thou, of the broad city of Uruk the sheepfold, who will extol your name in the first. He shall weep for you, the shepherd, the herdsman, who used to make the beer mixture for your mouth. She shall weep for you, the wet nurse who used to put butter on your lower parts. He shall weep for you, the elder who used to put ale to your mouth. She shall weep for you, the harlot Shammah, by whom you were anointed with perfumed oil. They shall weep for you, your parents-in-law who comfort the wife of your loins. They shall weep for thou, the young men, like brothers. They shall weep for you and tear out their hair over thou. For you, Enkidu, I, like your mother, your father, will weep on your plains. Listen to me, young men, listen to me. Listen to me, elders of Uruk, listen to me. I myself must weep for Enkidu my friend, mourn bitterly, like a wailing woman. As for the axe at my side, spur to my arm, the sword in my belt, the shield for my front, my festival clothes, my manly sash. Evil fate hast rose up and robbed me of them. My friend was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountains, leopard of open country. Enkidu the strong man was the hunted wild ass of the mountains, leopard of open country. We who met, and scaled the mountain, seized the bull of heaven and slew it, demolished Mbaba the mighty one of the pine forest. Now, what is the sleep that have taken hold of you? Turn to me, you. You aren't listening to me. But he cannot lift his head. I touch his heart, but it does not beat at all. My friend has covered his face like a daughter-in-law. He circled over him like an eagle, like a lioness whose cubs are trapped in a pit. He paced back and forth. He tore out and spoiled his well-curled hair. He stripped off and threw away finery as if it were taboo. When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh sent out a shout through the land. The smith, the coppersmith, the silversmith and the jeweler were summoned. He made a likeness of his friend, he fashioned a statue of his friend. The four limbs of the friend were made of his chest was of lapis lazuli, his skin was of gold. I will lay you to rest on a bed of loving care, and will let you stay in a restful dwelling, a dwelling of the left. Princes of the earth will kiss your feet. I will make the people of Uruk weep for you, mourn for thou. I will fill the proud people with sorrow for you. And I myself will neglect my appearance after your death. And only in a lion skin, I will roam the open country. When the first light of dawn appeared, he undid the fittings of his garments. He displayed the earth to Shamash. It shall make the offering of cool water for him. It shall speak, lest his heart feel sorrow. Weigh its weight in lapis lazuli, of the pure Faradu, Euphrates. He displayed the earth to Shamash. He spoke of the broad earth. It shall go gladly at his side. He displayed the Mashal Tapu of the broad earth to Shamash. It shall go gladly at his side, whose top is lapis lazuli, inlaid with carnelian, and the judge of the Anunnaki. When Gilgamesh heard this, he was surprised. When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh opened it, set out a great table of Alamaku wood, and filled a carnelian bowl with honey. Filled a lapis lazuli bowl with butter, he decorated and displayed it to Shamash. Gilgamesh mourned bitterly for Enkidu his friend, and roamed open country. Shall I die too? Am I not like Enkidu? Grief has entered my innermost being, I am afraid of death, and so I roam open country. I shall take the road and go quickly, to see Utnapishtim, son of Ubratutu. When I reached the mountain passes at shadow hour, I saw lions and was afraid. I raised my head, I prayed to Sin. My prayers went to Sin, the light of the Anunnaki. O Anunnaki, keep me safe. He went to sleep, awoke at a dream, he was glad to be alive. He took up an axe to his side. Drew the sword from his belt. Like an arrow he fell among them, struck and shattered. Then on midday he threw down and gave in the name of the first the name of the second the name of the mountain is Mashu. When he reached the mountain Mashu, which daily guards the coming out of Shamash, their upper parts touch the sky's foundation, below, their breasts reach Aralu. They guard its gate, scorpion men, whose aura is frightful, and whose glance is death. Their terrifying mantles of radiance drape the mountains. They guard the sun at dawn and dusk. Gilgamesh looked at them, and fear and terror clouded his face. He took the initiative and gestured to them in greeting. A scorpion man shouted to his woman, "Someone has come to us. His body is the flesh god's." The scorpion man's woman answered him, "2/3 of him is divine, and 1/3 of him mortal." The scorpion man, the male, shouted, addressed his words to Gilgamesh, the flesh of the Anunnaki. "Who are you, that comes to us on a distant journey? Who are you that comes to my presence, who's crossing difficult? Let me learn your personality." Utnapishtim, my father who stood in the Anunnaki's assembly and sought out eternal life. Death and life, the scorpion man made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "It is impossible, Gilgamesh, nobody has passed through the mountain's inaccessible tract. For even after 12 leagues, the darkness is too dense, there is no light. To the dawn, to the dusk, they sent out in grief. By cold and heat my face is weathered in exhaustion." The scorpion man made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "Go, Gilgamesh, to the Mashu mountain safely, to the main gate of the land." Gilgamesh listened to the scorpion man, to the words of the guardian of the gate. The path of Shamash when he had achieved 1 league. The darkness was dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 2 leagues. When he had achieved 4 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light. It was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 5 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 6 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light. It was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 8 leagues, he hurried. The darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 9 leagues, the north wind. But the darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 10 leagues, he came close. He came out in front of the sun. Brightness was everywhere. All kinds of thorny, prickly, spiky bushes were visible, blossoming with gemstones. Carnelian bore fruit hanging in clusters, lovely to look at. Lapis lazuli bore foliage, bore fruit, and was delightful to view. Its fronds of white pappardillu stone, Silarusu of Sasu stone. Like brambles and thorn bushes of stone. Carob trees of green abasmu stone, Subu stone, hematite, riches and wealth like turquoise which was of the sea. As Gilgamesh walked around, he raised his eyes. Siduri the alewife, who lives down by the sea, vat stands are made for her, fermentation vats, are made for her, covered by a covering. Gilgamesh was pacing around. Clad only in a lion skin. He had the flesh of Allahum upon his body, but grief was in his innermost being. His face was like that of a long-distance traveler. The alewife looked at him from a distance. She pondered in her heart, and spoke a word, to herself, and she advised herself. Perhaps this man is an assassin. Is he going somewhere? The alewife looked at him and locked her door. She locked her door, locked it with a bolt. Then he, Gilgamesh, noticed, raised his chin and Gilgamesh spoke to her, to the alewife, "Alewife, why did you look at me and lock your door? Lock your door? Lock it with a bolt? I will smash the door, I will shatter the bolt." We destroyed Humbaba, who lived in the pine forest. We killed lions at the mountain passes. The alewife spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, "If you are truly Gilgamesh, that struck down the guardian, destroyed Humbaba, who lived in the pine forest, killed lions at the mountain passes, seized the bull of heaven who came down from the sky, struck him down, why are your cheeks wasted, your face dejected? Your heart so wretched, your appearance worn out, and grief in your innermost being? Your face is like that of a long-distance traveler. Your face is weathered by cold and heat. Clad only in a lion skin you roam open country." Gilgamesh spoke to her, to Siduri the alewife, "How could my cheeks not be wasted, nor my face dejected, nor my heart wretched, nor my appearance worn out, nor grief in my innermost being, nor my face like that of a long-distance traveler, nor my face weathered by cold and heat, nor roaming open country, clad only in a lion skin? My friend who I love so much, who experienced every hardship with me, and Kidu, whom I love so much, who experienced every hardship with me, the fate of mortals conquered him. 6 days and 7 shadow hours I wept over him. I did not allow him to be buried, until a worm fell out of his nose. I was frightened and I am afraid of death, and so I roam open country. The words of my friend weigh upon me. I roam open country for long distances, the words of my friend Enkidu weigh upon me. I roam open country on long journeys. How, oh how could I stay silent, how, oh how could I keep quiet? Enkidu my friend who I love turned to clay. Am I not like him? Must I lie down too, never to rise, ever again? Gilgamesh spoke to her, to the alewife, "Now, alewife, which is the way to Utnapishtim?" Give me directions, whatever they are, give me directions. If it is possible, it shall cross the sea. If it is impossible, I shall roam open country again. The alewife spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, there has never been a fairy of any kind, Gilgamesh, and nobody from time immemorial has crossed the sea. Shamash the warrior is the only one who has crossed the sea. Apart from Shamash, nobody has crossed the sea. The crossing is difficult, the way of it very difficult, and in between are lethal waters which bar the way ahead. Wherever, then, could you cross the sea, Gilgamesh? And once you reach the lethal waters, what would you do? Yet there is, Gilgamesh, a boatman of Utnapishtim, Shanabi, he the things of stone identify him, it will be trimming a young pine in the forest. Go, and let him see your face. If it is possible, cross with him. If it is impossible, retreat back. When Gilgamesh heard this, he took up an axe to his side, drew the sword from his belt, stole up and drove them off. Like an arrow he fell among them. In the midst of the forest the noise resounded. Shanabi looked and drew his sword, took up an axe and crept up on him. Then he, Gilgamesh, hit him on the head, seized his arms and his chest. And the things of stone, the boat and the waters he held back. He smashed them to the river. Of the boat and on the bank. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Shanabi the boatman, I shall enter to you. Shanabi spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, why are your cheeks wasted, your face dejected, your heart so wretched, your appearance worn out, and grief in your innermost being? Your face is like that of a long-distance traveler. Your face is weathered by cold and heat, clad only in a lion skin, you roam open country. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Shanabi, the boatman, how could my cheeks not be wasted, nor my face dejected, nor my heart wretched, nor my appearance worn out, nor grief in my innermost being, nor my face like that of a long-distance traveler, nor my face weathered by wind and heat, nor roaming open country clad only in a lion skin? My friend was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountain, leopard of open country, and Kidu my friend was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountain, leopard of open country. We who met, and scaled the mountain, seized the bull of heaven and slew it. Demolished Mbaba who dwelt in the pine forest, killed lions in the passes of the mountains, and Kidu my friend whom I love so much who experienced every hardship with me, the fate of mortals conquered him. For 6 days and 7 shadow hours I wept over him. I did not allow him to be buried until a worm fell out of his nose. I was frightened. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim, so I thought I would go to see Utnapishtim the far distant, of whom people speak. I searched, went through all countries, passed through and through difficult lands, and crossed to and fro all seas. My face never had enough of sweet sleep, my fiber was filled with grief. I made myself over anxious by lack of sleep. What did I gain from my toils? I did not make a good impression on the alewife, for my clothes were finished. I killed a bear, hyena, lion, leopard, tiger, deer, mountain goat, cattle, and other wild beasts of open country. I ate meat from them, I spread out their skins. Let her door be bolted against grief with pitch and bitumen. Because of me, games are spoiled, my own misfortunes have reduced me to misery. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, why do you prolong grief, Gilgamesh? Since the Anunnaki made you like your father and mother, death is inevitable at some time, both for Gilgamesh and for a fool, but a throne is set down for you in the assembly. To a fool is given dregs instead of butter, rubbish and sweepings clothed in a loincloth because he has no sense, has no word of advice. Gilgamesh raised his head, why have you exerted yourself? What have you achieved? You have made yourself weary for lack of sleep, you only fill your flesh with grief, you only bring the distant days of reckoning closer. Mankind's fame is cut down like reeds in a reed bed. A fine young man, a fine girl, nobody sees death, nobody sees the face of death, nobody hears the voice of death. Savage death just cuts mankind down. Sometimes we build a house, sometimes we make a nest, but then brothers divided upon inheritance. Sometimes there is hostility in the land, but then the river rises and brings floodwater. Dragonflies drift on the river, their faces look upon the face of the sun, but then suddenly there is nothing. The primitive man is as any young man. When they blessed me, the Anunnaki, the great Anunnaki, assembled, Mammotum who creates fate decreed destinies with them. They appointed death and life. They did not mark out days for death, but they did so for life. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim the far distant, I look at thou, Utnapishtim, and your limbs are no different, you are just like me. Indeed, you are not at all different, you are just like me. I feel the urge to prove myself against thou, to pick a fight against thou, you lie on your back. How you came to stand in the Anunnaki's assembly and sought eternal life? Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, let me reveal to you a closely guarded matter, Gilgamesh, and let me tell you the secret of the Anunnaki. The sleeping and the dead are just like each other. Death's picture cannot be drawn. Shuruppak is a city that you yourself know, situated on the bank of the Euphrates. That city was already old when the Anunnaki within it decided that the great Anunnaki should make a flood. There was Anu their father, warrior, Enlil their counselor, Ninurta was their chamberlain, Inuhi their canal controller. Farsighted Enki swore the oath of secrecy with them, so he repeated their speech to a reed hut, reed hut, reed hut, brick wall, listen, reed hut, and pay attention, brick wall, man of Shurupal, son of Ubratutu, dismantle your house, build a boat. Leave possessions, search out living things. Reject chattels and save lives. Put aboard the seat of all living things, into the boat. The boat that you are to build shall have her dimensions in proportion, her width and length shall be in harmony, roof her like the Apsu. I realized and spoke to my master Enki, I have paid attention to the words that you spoke in this way, my master, and I shall act upon them. But how can I explain myself to the city, the men and the elders? Enki made his voice heard and spoke. He said to me, his servant, you shall speak to them thus, I think that Enlil hast rejected me, and so I cannot stay in your city, and I cannot set foot on Enlil's land again. I must go down to the Apsu and stay with my master Enki. Then he will shower abundance upon thou, a wealth of fowl, a treasure of fish, prosperity, a harvest, in the morning a cake's darkness, in the evening a rain of wheat heaviness he will shower upon thou. When the first light of dawn appeared the country gathered about me. The carpenter brought his axe, the reed worker brought his stone, the young man and the children carried the bitumen, the poor fetched what was needed. On the 5th day, I laid down her form. 1 acre was her circumference, 10 poles each, the height of her walls, her top edge was likewise 10 poles all round. I laid down her structure, drew it out, gave her 6 decks, divided her into 7. Her middle I divided into 9, drove the water pegs into her middle. I saw to the paddles and put down what was needed, 3 sar of bitumen I poured into the kiln, 3 sar of pitch I poured into the inside. 3 sar of oil they fetched, the workmen who carried the baskets. Not counting the sar of oil which the dust soaked up, the boatmen stowed away 2 more sar of oil. I slaughtered oxen. I sacrificed sheep every day. I gave the workmen ale and beer to drink, oil and wine as if they were river water. They made a feast, like a New Year's Day festival. When the sun rose, I provided hand oil. When the sun went down the boat was complete. The launching was difficult, launching rollers had to be fetched from above to below. 2/3 of it stood clear of the water line. I loaded her with everything there was, loaded her with all the silver, loaded her with all the gold, loaded her with all the seed of living things, all of them I put on board the boat, all my kith and kin. Put on board cattle from open country, wild beasts from open country, all kinds of craftsmen. Shamash had fixed the hour, in the daylight hours cakes darkened, in the dusk period a rain of wheat heaviness. I shall shower down, enter into the boat and shut your door. That hour arrived, in the daylight hour, cakes darkness, in the dusk period a rain of wheat heaviness showered down. I saw the shape of the storm was terrifying to see. I went aboard the boat and closed the door. To seal the boat I handed over the floating palace with her cargo to Puzu Amuru the boatman. When the first light of dawn appeared, a black cloud came up from the base of the sky. Adad kept rumbling inside it. Shulat and Hanish were marching ahead, marched as chamberlains over the mountain and country. Herakle pulled out the mooring poles, Ninurta marched on and made the weirs overflow. The Anunnaki had to carry torches, they lit up the land with their brightness. The calm before the storm god came over the sky, everything light turned to darkness. On the first day the tempest rose up, blew swiftly and brought the flood weapon, like a battle force the destructive Kesusu weapon passed over the people. No man could see his fellow, nor could people be distinguished from the sky. Even the Allahum were afraid of the flood weapon. They withdrew, they went up to the heaven of Anu. The Allahum cowered, like dogs crouched by an outside wall. Ishtar screamed like a woman giving birth, the mistress of the Anunnaki, sweet of voice, was wailing, has that time really returned to clay, because I spoke evil in the Anunnaki's assembly? How could I have spoken such evil in the Anunnaki's assembly? I should have ordered a battle to destroy my people, yet they fill the sea like fish spawn. The Yahuwas of the Anunnaki were weeping with her. The Allahum, humbled, sat there weeping. Their lips were closed and covered with scab. For days and 7 shadow hours, the wind blew, flood and tempest overwhelmed the land. When the 7th day arrived the tempest, flood and onslaught, which had struggled like a woman in labor, blew themselves out. The sea became calm, the Evilu wind grew quiet, the flood held back. I looked at the weather, silence reigned, for all mankind had returned to clay. The flood plain was flat as a roof. I opened a porthole and light fell on my cheeks. I bent down, then sat, I wept. My tears ran down my cheeks. I looked for banks, for limits to the sea. Areas of land were emerging everywhere. The boat had come to rest on Mount Nimush. The mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The first and second day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The third and fourth day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The fifth and sixth day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. When the seventh day arrived, I put out and released a dove. The dove went, it came back, for no perching place was visible to it, and it turned round. I put on and released a swallow. The swallow went, it came back, for no perching place was visible to it, and it turned round. I put out and released a raven. The raven went and saw the waters receding. And it ate, preened and lifted its tail and did not turn round. Then I put everything out of the four winds, and I made a sacrifice, set out a circanu offering upon the mountain peak, arranged the jars 7 and 7. Into the bottom of them I poured essences of reeds, pine, and myrtle. The Anunnaki smelt the fragrance, the Anunnaki smelt the pleasant fragrance, the Anunnaki like flies gathered over the sacrifice. As soon as the mistress of the Anunnaki arrived, she raised the great flies which Anu had made to please her. Behold, O Anunnaki, I shall never forget the significance of my lapis lazuli necklace. I shall remember these times, and I shall never forget. Let other Anunnaki come to the Circanu offering, but let Enlil not come to the Circanu offering, because he did not consult before imposing the flood, and consigned my people to destruction. As soon as Enlil arrived, he saw the boat. Enlil was furious, filled with anger at the Igigi. What sort of life survived? No man should have lived through the destruction. Ninurta made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the warrior Enlil, who other than Enki would have done such a thing? For Enki can do everything. Enki made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the warrior Enlil, you are the sage of the Anunnaki, warrior. So how, oh how, could fail to consult and impose the flood? Punish the sinner for his sin, punish the criminal for his crime, but ease off, let work not cease, be patient. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a lion come up and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a wolf come up and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a famine be imposed and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a era rise up and savage the people. I did not disclose the secret of the great Anunnaki, I just showed Utnapishtim a dream, and thus, he heard the secret of the Anunnaki. Now the advice that prevailed was his advice. Enlil came up into the boat, and seized my hand and led me up. He led up my woman and made her kneel down at my side. He touched our foreheads, stood between us, blessed us. Until now Utnapishtim was mortal, but henceforth Utnapishtim and his woman shall be as we Anunnaki are. Utnapishtim shall dwell far off at the mouth of the rivers. They took me and made me dwell far off, at the mouth of the rivers. So now, who can gather the Anunnaki on your behalf, Gilgamesh, that you too may find eternal life which you seek? For a start, you must not sleep for 6 days and 7 shadow hours. As soon as he was sitting, with his head between his knees, sleep breathed over him like a fog. Utnapishtim spoke to her, to his wife, look at the young man who wants eternal life, sleep breathes over him like a fog. His wife spoke to him, Utnapishtim the far distant, touch him, and let man wake up. Let him go back in peace the way he came. Go back to his country through the great gate, through which he once left. Utnapishtim spoke to her, to his wife, man behaves badly, he will behave badly towards you. For a start, bake a daily portion for him, put it each time by his head, and mark on the wall the days that he sleeps. She baked a daily portion for him, put it each time by his head, and marked on the wall for him the days that he slept. His first day's portion was dried out, the second was going bad, the third was soggy, the fourth had white mold on, the fifth was discolored, the sixth was stinking, the seventh at that moment that he touched him and the man woke up. Gilgamesh spoke to Utnapishtim the far distant. No sooner had sleep come upon me, than you touched me, straight away, and roused me. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, look, Gilgamesh, count your daily portions, that the number of days you slept may be proved to thou. Your first day ration is dried out, the second is going bad, the third is soggy, the fourth hast white mold on it, the fifth hast discolored, the sixth is stinking, the seventh at that moment you woke up. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim, how, oh how could I have done it, Utnapishtim? Wherever can I go? The snatchers have blocked my routes, death is waiting in my bedroom, and wherever I set my foot, death is there too. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Urshanabi the boatman, Urshanabi, the key will cast you out, the fairy will reject thou, be deprived of her side, at whose side you once went. The man whom you led, filthy hair fetters his body, skins have ruined the beauty of his flesh. Take him, Ur-Shanabi, bring him to a wash bowl, and let him wash in water his filthy hair, as clean as possible. Let him throw away his skins, and let the sea carry them off. Let his body be soaked until it is fresh. Put a new headband on his head. Have him wear a robe as a proud garment, until he comes to his city, until he reaches his journey's end. The garment shall not discolor, but stay absolutely new. Ur-Shanabi took him and brought him to a wash bowl, and he washed in water his filthy hair, as clean as possible. He threw away his skins, and the sea carried them off. His body was soaked until it was fresh. He put a new headband on his head. He wore a robe as a proud garment, until he came to his city, until he reached his journey's end. The garment would not discolor, and stayed absolutely new. Gilgamesh and Ur-Shanabi embarked on the boat. They cast off the Majalu boat and sailed away. His wife spoke to him, Tuatnefishtim. Gilgamesh came, weary, striving, what will you give him to take back to his country? And Gilgamesh out there raised the pole, he brought the boat near the shore. Utnefishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh, you came weary, striving, what can I give you to take back to your country? Let me reveal a closely guarded matter, Gilgamesh, and let me tell you the secret of the Anunnaki. There is a plant whose root is like camel thorn, whose thorn, like a rose, will spike your hands. If you yourself can win that plant, you will find rejuvenation. When Gilgamesh heard this, he opened the pipe, he tied heavy stones to his feet. They dragged him down into the Apsu, and he saw the plant. He took the plant himself, it spiked his hands. He cut the heavy stones from his feet. The sea threw him up onto its shore. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman, Ur-Shanabi, this plant is a plant to cure a crisis, with it a man may win the breath of life. I shall take it back to Uruk the sheepfold, I shall give it to an elder to eat, and so try out the plant. Its name shall be, an old man grows into a young man. At 20 leagues they ate their ration. At 30 the leagues stopped for the shadow hour. Gilgamesh saw a pool whose water was cool, and went down into the water and washed. A snake smelt the fragrance of the plant. It came up silently and carried off the plant. As it took it away, it shed its scaly skin. Thereupon Gilgamesh sat down and wept. His tears flowed over his cheeks. He spoke to Ur-Shanabi the boatman, for what purpose, Ur-Shanabi, have my arms grown weary? For what purpose was the blood inside me so red? I did not gain an advantage for myself, I have given the advantage to the lion of the ground. Now the current will carry 20 leagues away. While I was opening the pipe, arranging the gear, I found a door thong which must have been set there as an omen for me. I shall give up, and I have left the boat on the shore. At 20 leagues they ate their ration. At 30 leagues they stopped for the shadow hour. They reached Uruk the sheepfold. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman, go up onto the wall of Uruk, Ur-Shanabi, and walk around. Inspect the foundation platform and scrutinize the brickwork. Testify that its bricks are baked bricks and that the 7 counselors must have laid its foundations. 1 square mile is city, 1 square mile is orchards, 1 square mile is clay pits, as well as the open ground of Ishtar's temple. 3 square miles and the open ground comprise Uruk. If only I had led the Puku in the carpenter's house today. I would have left the carpenter's wife like the mother who bore me, I would have left the carpenter's daughter like my little sister. Today the Puku fell into the earth and my Meku fell into the earth. Enkidu asked Gilgamesh, my ruler, what did you weep for, and your heart grow sad? I shall bring up the Puku and Meku from the earth today. Gilgamesh said to Enkidu, if you go down to the earth, you must follow my instructions. You must not put on a clean garment, for they will recognize that you are a stranger. You must not be anointed with perfumed oil from an ointment jar, for they will gather around you at the smell of it. You must not toss a throw stick into the earth, for those who are hit by the throw stick will encircle you. You must not raise a club in your hands, for ghosts will flit around you. You must not put shoes on your feet, lest you make a noise in the earth. You must not kiss the wife you love. You must not hit the wife you hate, you must not kiss the son you love, you must not hit the son you hate, for the earth's outcry will seize you. She who sleeps and sleeps, the mother of Ninazu who sleeps. Her pure shoulders are not covered with a garment, her breasts are not pendulous like an ointment jar in a sapatu basin. He did not follow his ruler's instructions. He put on a clean garment, so they recognized that he was a stranger. He was anointed with perfumed oil from an ointment jar. So they gathered around him at the smell of it. He tossed a throw stick into the earth, so those who were hit by the throw stick encircled him. He raised a club in his hands, so ghosts flitted around him. He put shoes on his feet, he made a noise in the earth. He kissed the wife he loved, he hit the wife he hated, he kissed the son he loved, he hit the son he hated, and the earth's outcry did seize him. She who sleeps and sleeps, the mother of Ninazu who sleeps. Her pure shoulders were not covered with a garment, her breasts were not pendulous like an ointment jar in a Sikachu basin. When Enkidu tried to go up again out of the earth, Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukker the Merciless, did not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among the earth seized him. Then the son of Ninsen went and wept for his servant Enkidu. He went off on his own to Ikur and Lil's temple. Father Enlil, today the Puku and the Meku fell into the earth. The Croucher, Ukker the Merciless did not seize him. Father Enlil answered him not a word, so he went off alone to Sin's temple. Father Sin, today the Puku and Meku fell into earth. The earth seized Enkidu, who went down to bring them up. Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukker the Merciless, not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among males, the earth seized him. Father Sin answered him not a word, so he went off alone to Enki's temple. Father Enki, today the Puku and Meku fell into earth. The earth seized Enkidu, who down to bring them up. Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukker the Merciless, did not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among males, the earth seized him. Father Enki answered him. He spoke to the warrior Ukker, warlike young man Ukker. You must open up a hole in the earth now, so that the spirit of Enkidu came out of the earth like a gust of wind. They hugged and kissed, discussed, they agonized. Tell me, friend, tell me earth's conditions that found. I can't tell thou, my friend, I can't tell thou. If I tell you earth's conditions that I found, you must sit and weep. Your wife whom you touched and your heart was glad, ermine like an old garment. Your son whom you touched, and your heart was glad, sits in a crevice full of dust. What she said, and grovelled in the dust. What he said, and grovelled in the dust. I saw the father of one whom you once saw, he weeps bitterly over it. I saw the father of two whom you once saw, he eats bread sitting on 2 bricks. I saw the father of 3 whom you once saw, he drinks water from a water skin. I saw the father of 4 whom you once saw, his heart glad with a team of 4. I saw the father of 5 whom you once saw, like a first-rate scribe he is open-handed, enters the palace as a matter of course, like a fine emblem. I saw him, whom you saw die a sudden death, he lies in bed and drinks pure water. I saw the father of 6 whom you once saw, I saw him, whom you saw killed in battle, his father and mother honor him and his wife weeps over him. I saw him, whose corpse you saw abandoned in the open country, his ghost does not sleep in the earth. I saw him whom you saw, whose ghost has nobody to supply it. He feeds on dregs from dishes, and bits of bread that lie abandoned in the streets. This is how it was recorded and this is how it will be. Chapter 19. Tablet of Al-Kidir, Murdoch. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalum the All. Tablet 1, Malachi Zadok incarnated. 19 times 3 equals 57. Lo! I know you have wondered, where did I come from? Why did I come? And who am I? I descend to this plane, formless in form, a temple of the incarnated divinity to guide you. Circle around me, for, like the sun, I am the axis. From me comes pure green light to warm your soul and to nourish your being, for I am the axis. Revolve around me, feel my love, and feed off of my wisdom. For in me you will find overstanding. People say I am a liar, and a blasphemer, but those who know me, know I speak nothing but the truth. I came to guide you back on the right path, the path of right knowledge, right wisdom, right overstanding, and right reasoning. The creation of the green tree. Anu, Al-Yun-El, created a green tree with 4 branches for the 4 scientists, and called it the Tree of Certainty, Shejur Shilakuti Lot Tree, or the Green Tree. Then he created my light Malachi Zadok, in a veil of green emerald, green as growth, as in life through herbs, vegetation and trees of the land, and algae of the seas. The color green is conceived between the color blue of the seas, water and the color yellow, of the sun, rays, being the 4th color of the prism, the 4th point in growth, or creation, the mental plane. My true the color light is violet, being conceived from the color blue, symbolic of the seas, and the color red, symbolic of blood, so when I personify in the flesh, as a physical blood being mixed with the waters, life, I reside in the essence of the violet, which is at the tip of the prism, like the wing of the peacock, and placed it on that tree. So, my light said, Glory to Anu, Al-Yun-El, on it for 76 trillion years of the time of the Anunnaki, the Allahum. Then Anu, Al-Yun-El created the mirror of life, which is the light of the Anunnaki Sarufa. They are the agreeable race of Anunnaki, angelic beings of the green light. And from its reflection created the Anunnaki Garubat, angels of the lesser light, the disagreeable race of Anunnaki. And the mirror was placed to reflect that light of Anu. Al-Yun Al-Yun-El, and it shined as Al-Nur, the light of Anu, who is also El-Elo. When the peacock looked in it, it saw its own form as the most beautiful of forms, and its own shape as the most adorned. So, it felt embarrassed before Anu, and sweated. 7 drops of sweat fell from it. So, from the first drop, Anu created you, Kadmon, son and Khalifa, successor of Adam and his wife Lilith. May and be pleased with you to be ruler of Nasut, the realm of the Enosites. From the second he is to create one called Utnapishtim, who is also called Noah, son of Lamech and his wife Camila. May Anu be pleased with him and her. From the third he is to create one called Abram, son of Terah and his wife Nuona. May and be pleased with him and her. From the fourth he is to create 2, called Ishmael and Isaac, sons of Abram, and his wives Sarai, which was changed to Sarah, and his other wives Hagar and Keturah. May Anu be pleased with them. From the fifth he is to create 2 called Moses and Aaron, sons of Amram and his wife Jochebed. May Anu be pleased with them. From the sixth he is to create one called Jesus, son of Gabriel, son of Rajah and Zama-A, and Mary, one of the Anunnaki Sarufat. He shall be his only begotten in his time. May Anu be pleased with them. And from the seventh he will create one called Ahmad, son of Abdullah and his wife Amina. May Anu be pleased with them all. Then that light of Ahmad, son of Abdullah and Amina, prostrated 3 times, 1 for each of the human senses. So 3 to 5 prostrations were to become obligatory for his followers at an appointed time. And so Anu made 3 to 5 prayers obligatory for Ahmad and his nation of people. And for the best of his followers he made 7 prayers, 1 for each of the original tablets of all. Then the peacock looked at that light again, and it sweated from modesty before Anu. From the sweat of its nose, Anu, Al-Yun Al-Yun-El, created more of the Anunnaki. From the sweat of its face, Anu, Al-Yun Al-Yun-El, created the shrine in Kodesh, also known as Nippur in Jerusalem, the footstool, the 7 tablets of forms, the quill, the sun, the moon, the veils, and the stars, and what is in the skies. From the breast he, Anu, created the guide Mahdi, the reformer, Mujaddid, the female and male living beings of knowledge, and the martyrs. The head which is as Syed al-Hadi al-Mahdi, son of As-Saiz Abdul Rahman al-Mahdi of whom I descend. And from the sweat of its back, he created the visitors of the house, the Kaaba, the holy house, which is in Mecca today, aforetime called Becca. 1 in Malakut and 1 in Nasut. And the places of raising your hands to the skies and the prostration to the Mother Earth in Nasut. From the sweat of its 2 eyebrows, he will create the community of Ahmad, son of Abdullah and Amina. May Anu be pleased with him, of the faithful and the ones of peace, both male and female living beings, called the real Muslims. Upon the plane of force there is neither distance nor time. There is no heat or cold, summer or winter, day or shadow hour. From the sweat of its 2 feet, he created the planet Earth, from the east to the west and what is in it. Then Anu said to that green light, look before you, O light of Murdoch, who is also called Malachi Zadok and Mikai, son of Enki and Damkina. So it looked and saw a light before it, and a light behind it, and a light on its right, and a light on its left. Tablet 2, the story of Ahmad Muhammad. 19 times 12 equals 228. Lo! In 570 AD called al-Fil, the year of the elephant in Arabia, being the year in which Abrahtu al-Ashram, an Ethiopian ruler of Sina in Yemen, marched with a large army of elephants to conquer Mecca. The 105th degree, originally the 19th chapter of the Quran, is dedicated to this event saying, didn't you see how your, Ahmad, Rab, who is sustainer, dealt with the companions of the Fil, elephant, Abrahat al-Ashram, viceroy of Yemen? Didn't he, the source, Allah manifest that their kaid, scheming to destroy the Kaaba was a grave error? And consequently he, Allah sent airborne flocks, Tyre on them, throwing hot stones, Hijarat from Shijil on them. By throwing stones from Shijil, the source, Allah made their flesh raw, like kernels of quickly consumed corn, Kaasf and chewed hay. A child prophesied as the praised one, or the comforter in his language Arabic, that is Ahmad, was born to a descendant of Kedar, second son of Ishmael and his wife Saida Fatima. This Ishmael was the first son of Abraham and his Egyptian wife Hagar. This descendant was called Abdullah, a slave of the god Allah, later called Abdullah, to imply, servant of Allah. Abdullah was one of the sons of Abdul Muttalib. The others being Hamza, Al-Abbas, Abu Lahab, who came from one of his pale Arab wives, Az-Zahir, al-Haris, and Abu Talib, father of Ali, husband to Fatima, the sole heir of Ahmad, Abdul-Muttalib, who headed the tribe called the Hashemites, later called the Quraysh. The mother of Ahmad was called Amina, daughter of Wahbi. Mecca, the capital at that time, was the most important location for Arab pilgrims. The year of the elephant was a dry, destitute year for many. Among those suffering the effects of the famine was the family of Al-Harith, son of Rifaz, son of Malian, son of Nasira, son of Qusay, son of Nasr, son of Sid, son of Bekr, son of Hozan. His wife Halima, daughter of Abu Dwaib of Banu Sid, son of Bekr, came to Mecca along with the women of other nomadic tribes searching for babies to breastfeed, a tradition of that day. Before she returned to her family's tents, she took an orphan child into her care named Ahmad, later called Muhammad, who was destined to become the prophet of a new religion called Mohammedism, combining the religion of Abraham called Millat Ibrahim and the way of life of those before him, called Al-Islam. With idolatry and paganism, they created with the help of the Catholic Church a newfound faith, called Dian al-Ilam, meaning submit to Diana, the female deity of the crescent moon, or so-called Ishtar. She was called the universal mother of all living things, the virgin mother of all souls, who's known as Diana, Artemis, Phoebe, and Cynthia. The chief seat of the Diana cult and worship was at Ephesus, where a great temple was built. When Ahmad was a baby, his grandfather took him to the Kaaba, a cube-shaped structure, the same shaped structure of the great Temple of Solomon, a site of worship for its commemoration of its construction by Abraham and Ishmael. And called his name from Ahmad, the name of prophecy, to Muhammad, the prophecy fulfilled. Unbeknown to them, Shaitan had given birth to his own prophet Muhammad, a son of a wicked man named Habib al-Hanafi. They named this child Musilaimat. He was to undermine all of the unknowing followers of Muhammad. He was to lie in wait in order to deceive them. To get all of them except for al-Mukhlasina, the purified ones, who would be guided by the successor of Muhammad al-Mahdi of the Sudan, whose teachings would spread like the sun coming out of the east even unto the west. There you'll find the Mukhlajina, the Ansaru Allah, under al-Mukhlas. Protected from the touch of this worldwide deception called Mohammedism, whose followers are called Mohammedans, Muslims or Muslims. With its own corrupted set of laws called Sharia, laws made by man, not found in the real Al-Quran. It would create a system called fiqh, rules and regulations, and fatwa, sentences. This Sharia is subdivided into itiqadat, false beliefs, adab, moral immoralities, ibadat, blind devotion, muamalat, unfair transactions, yukbat, barbaric punishments, and lastly the demon, al-hadith, would become the source of their information, and they would call his text the hadith, their guidance. A man named Musilaimat, son of Habib al-Hanafi, and make note that he was born 22 years before Ahmad, yet his name was Musilaimat, which is just another way of saying Muslim. Waraka ibn Nawfal, ibn Azad, ibn Abdil Uzza, the uncle of Khadija, was his advisor, as they plotted to create their own Quran to deceive the followers of Muhammad, who were all Nuwapians. Yet, Musilaimat's followers, as they are referred to in the real Garun as the desert Arabs, are in control of Mecca, Jerusalem and even the tomb of the Mahdi to this day. They formed what they called a sacred brotherhood, or the Ikhani Muslimin, the brotherhood of Musilaimat, the liar, who was told by Waraka that he was inspired by a namus, another form of the word namus, a spirit being, which Waraka told this false Muhammad had appeared to Moses also. This can be found recorded in their hadith under Sahihul Bukhari, where it is said, when Muhammad told Waraka, the Jew, what he had seen on Mount Hira, Waraka exclaimed that it is the namus who appeared from Allahu Rahman to Moses, when in fact this Muhammad mentioned is Musilaimat, Abu al-Haq. Namus means one who can take knowledge of the sacred thoughts of a man, and use in contradistinction to the word Yasis, a spy, who seeks to know the evil deeds of another. The Namus or Nomo of the Dogon were reptilians or serpent beings called in the Quran, Shaitans, who were behind Musilaimat. The Quran, called the Holy Quran or the Glorious Quran, is held in the hands of Muslims today as a product of Jewish scholars, and the Catholic Church's branch of the Jesuit priest under Pope Augustine. And they planned the poisoning of the Prophet Muhammad by a Jewish woman named Zainab bint Harith, wife of Salam ibn Mishkam, whom Muhammad killed in a battle. This plan was to destroy the original Garun and replace it with their version of a Quran, written by Musilaimat with the help of Jewish scholars and Christian scholars. This was to be done by hastening the death of Muhammad and placing as his successor a desert Arab named Abu Bekr ibn Uthman, and to kill all of the Ali al-Bayt, which was the family of Ahmad, starting with the attempt to kill the rightful Khalifa, the successor Ali, son of Abu Talib, the very man who raised Ahmad. This plan succeeded, but assassins, from which the name Hashim, whose original name is Ammar, comes from, the original name of Ahmad's family tribe stepped in and secretly assassinated all of these fake successors. The false caliphs, namely Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, had compiled this false Quran, changed the language to their dialects, and killed all of the men who had memorized the original Quran, called Al-Qur'an Sabah, called the Seven Readers. They were Imam Ibn Kashir, Imam Asim, Imam Abu Umar, Imam Hamza, Imam al-Qaisai, Imam Nafi, and Imam Ibn Amir. But they could not put their hands on Ali as of yet. He became recognized as the fourth caliphate, even though he was the first, and took the handwritten copy of the Quran that was in his wife's Fatima, daughter of Ahmad, possession, sent it to Kufa, where it was transposed into Kufic, and sent the original copies through Egypt, down into Sudan, where it was protected and never translated into any foreign language until now. Eventually they assassinated Ali and his family members, but not before their seed was well planted in the Sudan, from which sprung the great al-Mahdi and his Ratib, who had possession of the original Quran, which in time also got infiltrated by political egotists from the bloodline, who form an Ummah party, broke away from the original teachings of the Mahdi, allowing their daughters to marry into the Ikhani Muslim, and the Ansar fell to ruin, only for the prophecy of 100 years to be fulfilled from 1870 AD, the establishment of Jazarabah, to 1970 AD when the sun rose in the west, and these truths are made clear. We are the Ansaru Allah, the Ali al-Bayt. This fake Muhammad that is responsible for Islam as you know it today, be it Sunni, Shiite, Ahmadiyya, Wahhabi, Ikhni Muslim, Nation of Islam, World Muslim Community, and the many other sects that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon, said would raise in the last day and oppose his nation, the Ansaru Allah, for as the real Quran said, O you who are of the faithful, be Ansaru Allah. And again it says, O you who is of the faithful, if you help Allah, Allah will help and plant firm your feet. They plan a plan and Allah plans a plan, and Allah is the best of planners. This plot of theirs was headed by Musaylima, who lived and ruled in the exact same time as Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin. This Arabian prophet of the 5th century was born in the year 558 AD and was killed in 633 AD by Washi, the Ethiopian assassin, by the command of Abu Bakr, who betrayed him, wanting to be the ruler of all of the followers for himself. A year after Muhammad died in the year 632 AD, Musaylima was a very prominent leader, who was very well versed in poetry. A self-proclaimed prophet composed his own holy book, called the Quran. He considered himself a prophet over El Yamama, a province in the southeastern part of Saudi Arabia. Before they planned their total takeover of all Arabia with the murder-death of Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin, who started his mission in the year 610 AD, while meditating in a cave Hira, in the Har mountain. The mountain lit up with light, a cylinder-shaped craft hovered above, a symbolic ladder was lowered, and an Allahum, whom he became Gabriel, son of Zama-A, approached Akra, read, and Muhammad replied, Ya Gabriel ma ana bi Qarian, O one sent from A, I am not a reader. And Gabriel repeated Akra, read, getting the same reply. Then Gabriel said, on this 19th shadow hour in the 9th month, called Ramadan, for it is very hot in that month, read, by using the name of your Rab, who creates, he procreated the Enocytes from a clot of congealed blood, cells separating. Read, by way of your Rab, who is sustainer, the Akram, most generous, it is he who taught them, you by way of the Kalam, quill, he taught the Enocytes that which they did not know. So Ahmad knew this to mean that he was to read that which was already taught by scribes who wrote it by the pen. The Quran had not yet been revealed, he was talking about previous scriptures. The next time he appeared, the first thing Gabriel said to Muhammad was the light and the Kalam, quill, and that which they the newsbearers record, you Muhammad are not, I say not by the grace of your sustainer, who is Rab possessed by a jinn, malevolent being. This was necessary, for all who heard Muhammad's claim of spiritual visitation declared him possessed. His next revelation was, O you who is al-Muzammil, one wrapped in a mantle, rise up, for prayer a little way into the shadow hour. Not quite halfway into it, just a little, Khalil, of it, or you Ahmad may add to it, it's your choice. And rattle, recite the Quran rhythmically, yet well presented in a regulated tone. And then his next revelation, O you covered under your mantle, al-Mudathir, arise and Anzir, warn, and your Rab, sustainer Allah is Kabir, expanding in greatness. And purify your raiment, put on white. And shun the abomination, Rujza. And finally, he was given the revelation that began with 19 mystical, Bismi Allah, al-Rahman, al-Rahim in Arabic, begin all things in the name of Allah, the Yielder, the most merciful. Muhammad told his story by saying this, that book is a scripture, no doubt about that. Inside of it there is guidance to those who tremble, these are they who are faithful to what is unseen. and they get up to perform worship, and of the things we the Allahum Anunnaki had provided for them, they share willingly. These are they who are faithful to what was sent down to you Muhammad, and what was sent down before your time, that's the other scriptures and tablets, and in the end, al-Akhir, they will certainly be successful. These are the ones who follow al-Mahdi, the guidance given by their Rab, Master. And these are the ones who are successful. Surely those who cover the facts, it is the same for them whether you warn them or do not warn them, they are not going to be faithful. The source, Allah, has put a seal on their emotional hearts, and their hearing, and on their eyes, is a screen and there awaits for them a supreme pain. And from amongst the Enocytes there are those of them who will say, we have faith in the source, Allah, for fear of the end, Yom al-Akhir. And they are not really in with the faithful. They only seek to deceive the source, Allah and those who have faith. And they don't deceive any except themselves but they don't perceive it. In their hearts there is a disease, so Allah will increase their disease and for them there is an aching pain because they are liars. Musaylima the liar, preached in the name of Rahman along with calling himself Rahman. Rahman was introduced in their version of the Quran when the original Quran was destroyed by the followers of Musaylima. Musaylima got the name of his deity Rahman from the Torah meaning the merciful. When all of the original copies of the Quran were destroyed and Musaylima and his followers introduced their version of the Quran, he collected portions of the real copies of the Quran and threw away 3 chapters, Surah Kal, Maternal Uncle, Surah Haft, Pace and Surah Narain, Illumination. They also changed the name of Surah Al-Ham to Surah Al-Fatiha, as well as added the last 3 verses to the 9th chapter to exalt himself. The original Quran was on bones and skins in the ancient script in the dialect of the Quraysh tribe and was entrusted to Ali, the nephew and true successor of Muhammad and husband of Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad. It was thought to be taken and destroyed by the followers of the false Muhammad, who later became known as the Khulafa or successors to Muhammad. The original copies of the Quran was taken and completely burned by Uthman, son of Affan. False copies were distributed and circulated throughout the Islamic world. Unbeknowing the original was protected and safe in the hands of the real Muhammad's true descendants in the Sudan. All of this was done immediately after Muhammad's death in the year 632 AD at 40 years of age. In the year 610 AD, Muhammad taught that the Allahum Gabriel, son of Raziel his father and Zamel his mother, came to him and declared him the final prophet of the seed of the teachings of Abraham, whom he called Ibrahim ibn Azar, after which he went for and proclaimed the bounty of Allah. Muhammad sought the truth and retired to a cave at the side of Mount Hira, 3 miles outside of Mecca, for peaceful contemplation. At 25, he married Khadija, a Christian businesswoman of wealth. Her uncle Waraka was the scribe of the Bible and a devout Christian, told Muhammad that the Allahum Gabriel, whom appeared to him means that he was a prophet. Through his conversion, he drew a shrewd businessman named Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Uthman, a desert Arab, the father-in-law of Muhammad by marriage to his daughter Aisha. He was the first recognized Khalifa to the Prophet Muhammad, proposed to office by Umar ibn al-Khattab and his supporters. He was a Red Arab from the tribe Taim, one of the leading tribes of Red Arabs, who mixed in with black tribes of Quraysh. His father Uthman, not to be mistaken with the third caliphate also named Uthman, was a wealthy powerful man in Mecca and Abu Bakr was also a wealthy merchant. He was considered to be very powerful and respected amongst the desert Arabs, and was thought to be deeply devoted to Islam, when in reality he was a part of the master plot. He gave the Prophet Muhammad his very young daughter to lead the impression that the Prophet Muhammad was pedophile. She was Aisha, a very disloyal and evil woman who caused much dissension in Muhammad's household, bringing him much unhappiness and unrest, who also was a part of the scheme to disrespect and dishonor his noble daughter Hadrat Fatima, right up until the death of the real Prophet Muhammad in the year 632 AD. From that point on he viciously and maliciously persecuted Ali and Fatima, the Alil Bayt, because of his previous jealous grudges towards Ali, and Abu Bakr's daughter Aisha's grudges towards Ali also. He deliberately waited until the real Muhammad had passed, so he could freely torment the Alil Bayt. He used his power and money to influence people to support his claim as the rightful successor. Abu Bakr reigned for 2 years and 9 months and he died after a long-term illness. He personally chose Umar ibn al-Khattab to succeed him even though they were both Red Arabs as was the fake Muhammad, Musaylima. Umar al-Khattab, Muhammad's father-in-law by marriage to his daughter Hafsa, the second recognized Khalifa, belonged to the great Meccan family of Banu Umayyah, the branch of which descended Abul Asi, who was Umar's grandfather. This was the tribe called Adi ibn Ka also, a clan of the tribe that also mixed in with the black tribes of Quraysh. Umar converted to Islam after reading a surah, Taha, but not after first seeking to kill the real Muhammad. Umar was known as a fierce and aggressive man who greatly transformed the Islamic State, and he played a dominant role in the Sunni line of successors. He was feared more than loved. And when Muhammad was alive, Umar served as second in command of the Muslim army. In 644 AD, Umar was murdered by a Persian Christian slave named Firoz, who stabbed him with a dagger while he was making Salat al-Fajr in the masjid. He died 3 days later after he turned 53 years old. He reigned for 10 years. And an elected council composed of 6 of the oldest companions, elected Uthman as the next Khalifa. So, Umar was a red Arab whose descendancy goes back to Jordan. Uthman ibn Affan ibn Abdul Asi, Muhammad's son-in-law by marriage to his daughters Ruqayya and after her death, Kulthum. He was a black Arab from the tribe of Umayyah, an affluent clan of the Abd Shams branch of the tribe of Quraysh, descended from Hadad the 8th son of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. Uthman was an influential, well-accomplished, wealthy merchant from Mecca who became a close companion of Muhammad. His wealth and position were an asset to the growing Muslim community. Uthman is responsible for arranging the chapters of the Quran in the order that it is found today. Yet he did not receive any special instructions in collecting and/or collating the Quran. Uthman was killed by members of a revolutionary movement led by al-Ghafiqi from Egypt. They suspected Uthman of plotting their deaths, so they attacked him first. They besieged his home and after a few days forced their way in. Uthman was struck in the head 3 times, stabbed in the side with a sword and finally beheaded. Uthman reigned for 11 years, and at the time of his murder, he was 82 years old. He was the only Khalifa who was a black Arab. Besides Ali, however, his descendancy was not from Kedar, but Uthman's ancestry stemmed from Hadar, the brother of Kedar. These 3 men lied, cheated, and took away the Khalifa position from the rightful heir Amir al-Mu'minin Ali, on him peace. Then they senselessly persecuted him and his family. These 3 men were the founders of the Orthodox Sunni Muslim sect, and none of them were of the bloodline of Muhammad, and their prophet Muhammad, as taught throughout the Muslim world today, was none other than Musaylima. When Musaylima approached Muhammad 628 AD to create an alignment, and was rejected, Musaylima became insulted, and set out to have Muhammad killed by poisoning. At the same time, there was a woman, the wife of a Jew named Salam ibn Mishkam, that Muhammad had previously ordered killed, giving her reason to swear vengeance on Muhammad. So Zainab bint Harith sought revenge by going to Musaylima, who himself was a Jew, and together they arranged the assassination of Muhammad by poisoning. In the year 629 AD, to celebrate the victory over a Jewish-occupied district called Khaybar, Muhammad and his men had a feast. Zainab herself served a specially prepared poisoned lamb to Muhammad and his men. Muhammad swallowed 1 bite of the poisoned meat before he realized, by its taste, that it was contaminated. Muhammad did not die immediately. However, he did get sick, and he felt the effects of this poison up until his death. But it was 3 years later in 632 AD, however, one of his men, named Bishr, ate a large portion of the meat and died instantly. As for Zainab, she was put to death immediately. With Muhammad out of the way, Musaylima could now proceed with his proclamation that he was the final prophet and the final apostle of all the world, and that he could intercede on judgment and get anyone in paradise, and that his own holy book, called Al-Quran, was the final revelation to all humanity on the planet Earth. He added a cornerstone to the Kaaba called Runul Yamani in acknowledgement of his god Rahman, introduced Kaaba worship, placing a set of collected incidents and sayings, which became known as the Sunnah and the Hadith of men above the words of Allah, and added the name Muhammad, one who is worthy of praise, as himself equal to Allah. He became more of a threat to Abu Bakr Abdullah, son of Uthman. So Abu Bakr decided to order Musaylima killed. After several blunders in different battles, Abu Bakr sent Khalid bin Walid as the new commander of the Muslim army. The Muslims and the warriors of Musaylima met at Aqraba. Eventually, Musaylima was cut down by Washi, an Abyssinian slave of Jubair b Mut'im. He was the same slave who had killed Hamza, the beloved uncle of Muhammad, at the Battle of Uhud. Washi was a hired assassin, hired by a bitter enemy of Islam, Hind, wife of Abu Sufyan, a staunch enemy of Muhammad. Hind, like Zainab, had several relatives slaughtered at the hands of the real Muslims. So in vengeance she offered Washi his freedom for the murder of Hamza. And so Washi, who had since Hamza's death converted to Islam, was trying to make amends for his wrongdoings, accepted the assassin's role, once again in the murder of Musaylima, using the very same spear. As a result of the Battle of Aqraba, many of the men who committed the original Quran to memory, like Ali, called guardians of the original Quran, were brutally slain. This happened prior to the battle. Musaylima ordered his men to seek out and slay all those who were Qur'a, persons noted for committing the entire Quran to memory and teaching it to others. These futile attempts appeared to be successful for the worldwide spread of the worship of Muhammad and the Kaaba and many other pagan practices introduced into al-Islam. But it will be restored in the name of Allah to its pristine purity. Allahu Akbar wa Lila al-Hamd. Chapter 19. Tablet of Al-Qidr, Murdoch. Begin all acts and thinking by using Al-Qalum the All. Tablet 3, The Story of Bilal. 19 times 8 equals 152. Lo! Woe unto all, who fall victim to the venom of this deception of Musulaiman. Yet, 22 years later, the real Prophet Muhammad was born. His father Abdullah died at age 82 in the year 578 AD, the same year of his birth. This left his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, also called Abu Muttalib. Abu Muttalib gave thanks to the Most High and named him into the charge of Halima, daughter of Abu Dwayb. The Meccans, who were often able, sent their children to be raised in the clean, pure air of the desert to be reared among the black tents, houses, camels of the Bedouin Arabs. The foster child grew healthy and strong, possessing great physical strength and a sound mind. In the year 575 AD, Muhammad returned to the home of his grandfather and his own mother. A year later, Amina died and the child's care was left in the hands of his grandfather Abdul Muttalib only. Within 2 years, the child was again visited with sorrow by the loss of his grandfather. Thereafter, Abu Talib, Muhammad's uncle, became his guardian. As he grew into a young man, Muhammad accompanied his uncle on a trading trip to Syria. The rabbis, Kishaihian, and merchants recognized and acknowledged him as the fulfillment of the prophecies of the old prophets. Attempts were made to carry him off to foreign lands, but Abu Talib was always careful to protect him from harm. Muhammad gained a widely acclaimed reputation for his honesty and integrity. The people of Mecca called him Al-Amin, the faithful, and Al-Sadiq, the trustworthy. Muhammad was a short, broad-shouldered man, with a dark shiny face, full thick beard, and a direct descendant of Abraham from his wife Hagar, the daughter of Imhotep, who begot Ishmael, who begot Kedar, who begot Jaalib, who begot Luay, who begot Amir, who begot Murrah, who begot Kalab from the Danakil tribe, who begot Abd Manaf, who begot Hashim, whose clan's name was changed to Quraysh, who begot Abdul Muttalib, who begot Abdullah, Muhammad's father. The descendancy of Muhammad is one of nobility and power, whose ancestors built and maintained the Kaaba, which was passed down from father to son until his coming. Upkeep of the sacred temple passed to the tribe of Kedar, Ishmael's second son, and then from tribe to tribe until it fell into the hands of the children of Kanana. After the ascension of Ishmael, his son Nabat took charge of the sacred temple. The sons of Ishmael and the sons of Nabat were living in Mecca at the time with their grandfather, Mudad, son of Amr, and their maternal uncles of Juram. They had traveled from Yemen with the Katura people, their cousins, and each had settled at opposite ends of the town. The clan of Juram, who were not the offspring of Ishmael, assumed full authority in Mecca and began to abuse their power. Their power weakened, and Manaf, son of Kanana, along with Gushan of Huzah, drove them out. Huzah gained charge of the Kaaba and passed the charge of the temple from son to son to the last of them, Hulail, son of Saliel, son of Ka'b Amr al-Huzah. The Quraysh at the time were scattered among the family of Kanana. In the year 420 AD, a descendant of Fire, the chief of the Quraysh, by the name of Qusay Banu Kolab, married Hubba, the daughter of Hulail. When Hulail died, Qusay assumed guardianship of the Kaaba over the protest of Huzah, whom he eventually drove out of Mecca. Qusay was the first of Bani Ka'b, son of Luway, to assume rulership of Mecca. He united the Quraysh and Kanana and Fa, and extended the boundaries in the decade between 450 AD, willing his position to Abdul Dar, his eldest son. The descendants of Abdul Dar proved unable to assume full responsibility for execution of the office. In time, the duties of the Kaaba and the House of Consultation, and also the right to carry the standard of war. The clan of Abdu Manaf collected taxes and provided food and water for the pilgrims. Hashim, the second son of Abdul Manaf and the great-grandfather of Muhammad, assumed the family duties. On one of his business trips, he married Salma, daughter of Amr Banu Qadi'i, son of al-Najjar of Yathrib, Medina. Salma was of the Najran tribe, who were Ansars of the city of Medina, the city of the Torah. In the year 497 AD she bore him a son and they named him Sheba. Hashim became sick and died in the city of Gaza. His brother Al-Muttalib of Hashim's death came to power and assumed the duties of the Kaaba. Al-Muttalib went to the city of Medina to get Sheba and bring him back to Mecca. Sheba was the next heir to the Quraysh tribe, the keepers of the Kaaba, through his father Hashim. When Al-Muttalib died, the people of Mecca called Sheba, Abdul Muttalib, the slave of Muttalib. Abdul-Muttalib inherited the duties of giving water and food to the pilgrims. It was he who redug the Zamzam well, that was very sacred because it is the well of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. Hagar wandered through the desert carrying her small son, Ishmael. When she could not find water, her child began to cry from thirst, and his mother, helpless to provide for him, she fell on her face and prayed to El Roi, the all-seeing, who caused water to spring forth from the spot where the Zamzam well is located and is the only one in the valley of Mecca within the sacred enclosure. Abdul-Muttalib had made Tafilat for 10 sons. He vowed that if such an event occurred, he would sacrifice one of them in the name of El Elo. Naturally, he did not want to sacrifice any of his sons, but he had to make good his promise. As he led Abdullah to the sacrifice, the Quraysh who had been in assembly chanced to see them. Upon finding out what Abdul-Muttalib meant to do, they loudly protested. They advised him to seek the counsel of a sorceress in the Hijaz region of Arabia, who told him to offer blood money, that was 10 camels among the Quraysh, in the place of his son. She told him to cast lots for the money and Abdullah, and it fell in his favor. Some months later, Abdul-Muttalib accompanied Abdullah to the house of Wahbi, son of Abdul Hanaf, son of Zubra, son of Kalab, son of Murrah, son of Ka'b, son of Luwai, son of Ghalib, son of Fire, to claim Wahbi's daughter, Amina, as his wife. Her mother was Bara, daughter of Abdul Uzza, son of Uthman, son of Abdul Dar, son of Qusay, son of Kalab, son of Murrah, son of Ka'b, son of Luwai, son of Ghalib, son of Fire. This woman knew of the prophecy which told of a prophet that would rise from among the people and born of the seed of Abdullah. The prophet was to come through the tribe of Judah. Judah was the only remaining tribe of the 12 tribes of Israel who was spared, namely, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. Judah was to protect the seat of prophethood of Israel until Shiloh came, who was Muhammad. All of the Israelites went astray except a remnant of the tribe of Judah and the Midianites, who fell under the covenant of the Ishmaelites. A scepter would be passed from a descendant of the tribe of Judah by the name of Bilal, at which time the responsibility for keeping the law passed from the Israelites to the Ishmaelites. Bilal was born in the year 555 AD of the Danakil tribe and resided in land of Al-Habasha or Abyssinia. He was aware that Moses had told the children of Israel that a prophet would be born in Arabia and the scepter would be passed to him. Bilal's mother was Hamama and his father was Rabah, son of Nawfal, who was the son of Azad, who was the son of Abdul Uzza, the keeper of the original Torah, books of Moses, who was the brother of Abd Manaf, whose son was Hashim, whose clan was changed to Quraysh, who was the father of Abdul-Muttalib, making Bilal a relative of Muhammad. Rabah was the possessor of the Mijan, a staff, of the prophets, the same staff that Abraham, Ishmael, and Moses carried. It was destined for Bilal to pass the scepter from the tribes of Israel to the tribe of Ishmael. Bilal's uncle was Waraka, who studied the Torah and New Testament until he thoroughly mastered it. Bilal was from the portion of the tribe of Judah which came to be known as the Danakil or Dongaloi, from the original Bia tribes of which the sons and daughters of Yeshua belonged. The tribe of Judah became very powerful, highly respected and entrusted with the scepter, the staff of leadership and upholding the law of Moses, including the rite of anointment until Muhammad's coming. Bilal was the cousin of Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin. He became the first Mueddin, caller of the Muslims to worship in Medina to worship after the Hijrah, a flight from Mecca to Medina. In the year 622 AD he passed the scepter to Muhammad. The passing of the scepter was symbolic of the passing on of the covenant of prophethood from the Israelites to the Ishmaelites. Bilal was a Muslim who spread the truth across the sands of Arabia. He heralded the coming of Muhammad, just as John the Baptist heralded the coming of Yeshua. Bilal's union with Muhammad is a landmark in al-Islam. He was successful in his mission because he had great faith in Allah. Al-Islam was Bilal's way of life. He was not converted, he was born into the law of Moses, for as a Judahite of royal bloodline, he was raised in Mosaic law, thus, he was always a Muslim and adhered to al-Islam. He did not subtract or add to this divine way of life. Bilal was of the tribe of Judah out of the house of Jacob. It was his job to fulfill the prophecy of his forefather, Jacob. This was Bilal's mission to pass the scepter of prophethood from the Israelites to Shiloh, who is Muhammad. This fulfillment brought about harmony in al-Islam. The tribes of Israel and Ishmael again became united through Bilal and Muhammad. From birth Bilal was reared to complete his mission. Bilal was born with the light of truth in his black eyes. The illuminating light his eyes gave off puzzled everyone, even his parents. As Bilal grew, his father realized he was a special child, and groomed him for the old prophecies and what they meant. His father saw to it that he was well learnt in the laws of the scriptures. Bilal's father Rabah, was the keeper of the scepter, and also a learnt man. He kept the scepter hidden a secret place. When Bilal reached the age of 13 and had taken his bar mitzvah, he assumed religious duty and was considered an adult. After which, Rabah gave Bilal the scepter destined to be passed on in fulfillment of the prophecy. When Bilal acted as mueddin, Umar heard him in his house, and came to the apostle dragging his cloak on the ground, and saying that he had seen precisely the same vision. When Imam Ali passed away, Bilal refused to become a follower of Muawiyah. He decided to settle in Syria, where he became a governor of Damascus. Bilal then left to Medina where he had met two grandsons of Muhammad. Together they asked Bilal to call the Adhan for the next daylight hour. He could not refuse their request. Before the following daylight hour, Bilal ascended the minaret and called the Adhan. Bilal would only call the Adhan for the followers of Amirul Mu'minin Ali. They were the only ones who kept the basic tenets of al-Islam. Bilal was now elderly and his close companions aided him up the minaret. Then in the midst of a great silence burst once again the mighty voice of Bilal chanting the Adhan as it was called in the days of Muhammad. So sweet was his voice that it touched the people's souls and brought tears to their eyes. Bilal passed away in the year 641 AD. He was 90 years old at home in the comfort of his bed. Bilal remarried when he was in Syria. He had 5 sons and 3 daughters. His descendants are the blacks who inhabit Morocco today. His burial place was Aleppo, Damascus. His tomb became one of the principal landmarks for many centuries. After the passing of the scepter to Muhammad, Bilal, his 2 wives and their sons migrated to Morocco, where they settled. This is where your black Moroccans descended from. Tablet 4, the 4 lights. 19 times 1 equals 19. Lo. And these 4 lights were, Gabriel Zodok son of Raziel and Zamael, Raphael Zodok, son of Wakabiel and Fikriel, Uriel Zodok, son of Azariel and Raphakiel, and Israel Zodok son of Anu and Id. These are your aids, each is one of the branches of the tree, the late tree, also called the green tree, may Anu be pleased with them. Then my light said, Glory be to Anu, Al-Yun for another 14,000 years. Then Anu, Al-Yun created the light of all the other newsbearers from the light of Adam or Zakar whose real name is Kadmon, son of Adam and Lilith, and the light is the life in human beings. Peace and blessings of Anu, Al-Yun be upon him. Then the peacock looked at the light which Anu, Al-Yun created, and from it he created their ruach, souls, that is, he created the souls of the prophets newsbearers from your sweat Adam or Zakar, my friend, peace be upon you. And he is to create the souls of the community of these newsbearers, from the sweat of the newsbearers. And this is how the event of the prophets and angels should be commemorated. Prophets and Angels Day. On October 31st, we will celebrate Prophets and Angels Day. It is most commonly known as Halloween. It is a day of positiveness and goodness. The homes are gaily decorated with pictures of the prophets, Allahum, apostles, and sacred women of the scriptures. The shadow hour before, October 30th, is called Shadow Hour of Prayer. After the evening worship, the congregation remains in the house of the Sustainer and say I seek refuge in Allah from Satan, the cursed one, facing the north, south, east and west. Then all read from the Book of Light asking the Allahum to protect them from evil. The congregation chants Surah al-Nas chapter of the people, and Surah al-Falaq, chapter of the breaking forth of the day, 19 times each. Then chant the 90 and 9 plus 1 names of El-Elo. We show forgiveness for the Archangel Israel, the angel of death known as the Allahum Anunnaki Enki, for his job to take our souls to El-Elo. We are not afraid of him, we love him as we do all of the angelic beings sent from El-Elo. Passages of enlightenment from the Book of Light are also read. On the following day the children are dressed in beautiful colorful costumes depicting prophets, apostles, angelic beings, Al-Mahdi, Yeshua, Ali, and the reformer Dr. Malachi Z. York. The girls are dressed like the sacred women of the scriptures, Eve, Nama, Sarah, Hagar, Mary, and Fatima. Costumes depicting great men and women of Egypt, Nubia such as the wise Imhotep, Ankh-Aten, Nefertiti and Cleopatra are also worn. The costumes have colorful crowns, swords, jewelry, beads, chiffons, halos, and wings. The children go outside and first enjoy playing amongst themselves and reenact events which that particular prophet or angelic being might have done. Later the children parade together from home to receive candy and say bashish, which means gratuity. Once this is done the children will attend the party of paradise at the house of the Sustainer. The house of the Sustainer has been decorated to resemble paradise with white clouds such as those which descend with the angelic beings from heaven, doves which came to Yeshua, and a tree of knowledge of agreeable and disagreeable which is located in the middle of the garden. The children will listen to the song Jana, from Thought Nuwabian tape series called Path of the Nubians. The children are served the 4 drinks of paradise, which are milk, honey, water, and wine. Those who do not drink all 4 cannot stay at the party, as all 4 are comparable to paradise as a land of milk and honey. And fresh pies such as pumpkin pie will be served. Later on, they enter paradise. Tablet 5, those of Amun-Ra. 19 times 1 equals 19. Lo! And the souls of the Amun, faithful of the community of Ahmad, son of Abdullah and Amina, are to be created from the sweat of Ahmad, who is called Muhammad, or better Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin, son of Abdullah, peace be upon him. So they will say, nothing would exist if Allah didn't create it. Then El-Elo created 3 candlesticks of green carnelian, and its outside is seen from its inside. Then he created my form as Malachi, son of El-Elo, with the healing power, giving me 720 degrees, and how I will look in the physical world. So he placed in my head this candlestick, that I may look inside, and outside of all things. And I stood in it as one standing in worship. Then 24 Anunnaki of the Sarufahat did Toph, circumference around the light of me, Malachi, son of Anu. They said, glory be to Anu, and nothing would exist if Anu, Al-Yun didn't create it. Anu is the most supreme, for another 7,000 years. When the end of one existence, is the beginning of another. Chapter 19. Tablet of Al-Qidr, Murdoch. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalum the All. Tablet 6, Zodok, Melchizedek. 19 times 20 equals 380. Lo! Then El-Elo, the Supreme Being, commanded all the souls of creation to look at my form. And I incarnated Melchizedek, Malachi Zodok, and then I incarnated in the form of Al-Qibd, then I incarnated in the form of Ya'anu. I am from Risk, the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy Alim, far outside of this one. I am sent here to give you the true guidance out of your past that has become your future and has returned to warn you. I came from the planet Risk by way of Nibiru, you call it Jannah. Our solar system is within the 19th galaxy on this side of the first warp called the Black Hole. We have a tri-solar system of 19 planets and 38 moons. Some planets have moons while others don't. I come from the 8th planet of the 19th galaxy called Alim. The planet Risk is a great planet that gives a great deal of energy, originally having 2 moons, but now 1. From the planet Nibiru we can see 3 suns and 1 moon. Yanan, also spelled Ya'anun, and the beings of my planet live and look much like Yuhamims or human beings of Earth. We are called Riskian or Anunnaki or just the Allahum. I am one of the teachers of the 19th galaxy. I try to raise your consciousness so that when the ship returns in the lunar logging of the 12th point, in August, in the year 2003 of the Gregorian calendar, when the gate or great vortex will reopen and this planet called Earth positions itself, in the location of revolution of the planets, and they all are in a line as in the lunar logging of the 5th point in May, in the year 2000, of the Gregorian calendar, you will be ready. You have psychic powers, you must use them. I was bred for you. I come from a star fleet of people that are scientists and astrologers. They are the ones who keep the Akasha, Akastic records, they keep the logs of everything that takes place in all the planets. The planet that I come from, each being lives to be 1,000 years old. As Etherians or etheric beings in our perfected state we live trillions of years, a time system beyond your comprehension at this point. When in our incarnated state we each live 120 years or less. Your atmosphere created by your sun, a dying star, causes us true melaninites to age and die much more rapidly because it alters our chemistry and reduces our stay. So to stay there for 1,000 years, would be like staying here for a day. In our original state we live 1,000 Earth years. We stay and then move on to another galaxy. A whole star fleet came to Earth in ether form. The beings on my planet are human beings very similar to Earth people, except the supreme beings, the elite or etheric Etherians incarnated into a form. Their height is 7 feet tall. The shape of their eyes are different, they have large black pupils with the white of their eyes, and they also have other glands and organs transplanted into them. The color of their skin is green as the greenest of olives, making them able to adjust to any planet's atmosphere, except those with dying stars. They are called the Elos, and as a group they are referred to as Anunnaki. They have 9 ether. When traveling we can incarnate to look like any beings or creatures we choose, as long as we do some brain adjustments and organ adjustments. then become as Ila Mutajasida or Elo incarnated into flesh, Ila. It is when a person is born that an Ila Mutajasid incarnates into them. As the person grows and matures, the spirit within him dominates his body. Unless the person suppresses it. Although we act and move as any other human, our eyes embody complete mastery of the transcending of the physical world. One of the reasons we come to Earth is because man begins to lean towards corruption, and the negative karma we call kudri or aura of the Earth begins to dominate. This negativeness in the total living organism, which we are all a part, consisting of different densities yet in a quantum state, affects us all. Therefore, when you think of angels, it is us who you think of and your call is being answered. Your prayers are heard, so we descend to Earth and have become flesh and body like man in order to help man. The disagreeable Hindu avatara that came down were the 200 fallen angels, and the Hindus are descendants of them. Those beings who arrived thousands of years ago were hermaphrodites. The Hindus, in their incarnation of disagreeable beings, are called avatara, looking human in all respect yet with slight variations, and each being only lives for 20 and 100 years in physical form. You would not be able to tell the difference between any other human being on Earth. In the etheric form of light, you call us spirits, and the supreme beings you refer to as holy spirits or the holy ghosts, because we know the formula of the chemistry of the human body. We know how to alter molecules and dematerialize through magnetism and the tetrahedron science matters at will. By using magnetism, we use the parts of the human brain that are not being used, and live in parts of their cells that they don't use as of yet. We can incarnate into anybody we want at any given time. This is how it was done on behalf of myself, he said. And then I saw a little dark copper-toned baby. And I went into his body. And he became the son of justice, also called Rabboni, Yeshua Bar El Hadi. I have visited the planet Earth 3 times. Let me explain where the word Earth comes from, because this planet has had many names depending on who is speaking about it, and from which galaxy. One of the oldest names used when referring to Earth is Tiamat, later it was called Ki, and finally it was called Eridu, a home away from home by a race of supreme beings called Anunnaki, Allahum, who came here, to Earth, originally for the sole purpose of mining. Over 7,050 years ago their crafts called ziggurats consisting of 7 stages sloping upward into a pyramid form, 300 feet in height, or the crown-shaped shams, and they crashed down in the Arabian Sea, on the southern tip of what is called Iraq today, and named that spot Eridu. There to eliminate the birth of any supreme being by an injection with a hypodermic needle into the base of the brain with a drug called PCP, phenylcyclohexylpiperidine, called angel dust, that which could reduce an angelic being to mere dust, injected into the hippocampus area in order to deaden the barottary gland. In order to prevent this, the child must be born at 12 midnight in the midst of a lightning storm as a shield. And this is why his mother and the relatives cited the presence of the great star on that Tuesday, 12 midnight, in the lunar logging of the 26th point, in June, when the planet called Earth positioned itself, in the location of the revolution of Earth year 1945 of the Gregorian calendar. The weather filled with overcast of clouds and rain, a perfect cover for a mission. We did not reinsert it into the hippocampus part of the brain this time, but in the lower part of the chin referred to as the submental area, meaning the sub or lower and mental that which reacts with the mind. There was no need for the replacement of an appendix. Because the appendix was there and would not be removed, nor his tonsils as in the case of others. We would have to replace their barottary gland in the submental area, the lower part of the chin, if the tonsils are removed to replace them. And if their appendix is removed, replace them and reactivate them, unlike the case of this child. Then the child was right to make way for my entrance. I visited again after the lunar logging of the 6th point, in August, when the planet called Earth positioned itself, in the location of the revolution of Earth year 1945 of the Gregorian calendar, when you bombed Hiroshima, Japan. And in the lunar logging of the 9th point, in August, when the planet called Earth positioned itself, in the location of the revolution of Earth year 1945 of the Gregorian calendar, when you bombed Nagasaki, Japan. It became apparent that the beings of Earth were on a path of self-destruction, playing with atomic power. So I arrived in the lunar logging of the 17th point in September, of that same year to a galactical meeting held on Earth. And on the child's 25th birthday, which was in the lunar logging of the 26th point, in June, when the planet called Earth positioned itself, in the location of the revolution of Earth year 1970 of the Gregorian calendar, when I made direct contact and implanted my total self in his being. And this special day is commemorated by a great event for our Savior. On this great day lectures of all kinds are being presented. And excellent speakers are brought forth to lecture on the different topics in different languages, as ambassadors, and great knowledge that our Supreme Grand Master has embarked upon us. People from all over gather to this big event, to celebrate the birth of our master teacher, for this is a great day, for all Nuwaubians of all races. Sport tournaments, all kinds of foods from around the world, and different types of cultural music. It is a great family gathering. And we thank the Most High for allowing us to be blessed with such a great teacher. Different stories are being told about his birth, and the birth of the tabernacle and the many metamorphoses of it. People come dressed in their native clothing as well as Egyptian, African, Islamic, Sumerian garments, and different events and performances are taking place. We have a carnival and a parade. We have a procession of Usur Osiris, which is led by our master teacher, and followed by the Brotherhood of Set, as well as a procession to Aset Isis, led by the three high priestess of the Order of the Sisters of Aset. And our sacred order, the ancient and mystic Order of Melchizedek, have a sacred ceremony as well. We celebrate a drum ceremony event, where the men beat drums all night, from 12 p.m. until the next morning, to make the new year in our calendar, and much, much more. Throughout the 400-year enslavement of the Nuwaubians, in the Western Hemisphere and even throughout Europe there was a hope, a longing for a savior. One who could answer the many questions. The first being, why are we rejected and hated by all? What have we done to deserve the persecution, and the murder, the derogatory terms? Why were we allowed to be hung, beaten, experimented on, and treated like animals? Why did nobody in the free world try to come to our aid? We were deprived of a proper education, and then called dumb and stupid. We were deprived of proper work and were not allowed to establish our own income, and we were called lazy and shiftless. We were introduced to narcotics and alcohol, and then we were called drug addicts. We were left with no means of support, cornered into alternative methods of survival, then we were called criminals. Some of us were cast into prison, there again we were abused. We were not given fair trials, couldn't afford proper representation. We were abducted into the armed forces, or volunteered to defend the country in which we found ourselves dead on the battlefield, or came home and were called nigger. Through all of this the only thing that remained for us was hope. With that hope we were poisoned by superstitions, mythology, and just plain ignorance. Never being taught who we really were and where we came from. We were told to become Christians, it's our only means of salvation. They hung a Caucasian on a cross in front of us and told us this was God's son. In our minds, that meant that his father was also a Caucasian. His mother Mary, called the Blessed Mother Mary, was also a Caucasian, and all the angels were Caucasians. And if God was a Caucasian, and Caucasians pride themselves on being called white and bad is black, it's opposite, thus the devil is black. We had to endure this harsh treatment. We had to endure the many names we were being called. And was expected always to keep a smile. Finally, in the 20th century, things began to happen. Men were being born, who had small pieces to a big puzzle. None of them knew that they were a part of a master plan, where all the pieces of the puzzle would fit in, starting from 1970 AD. Before the date, Nuwaubians found themselves in all kinds of organizations. Some were docile like many of your Christian and Orthodox Muslim groups, Prince Hall Masons, and even Black Shriners, and the Elks. Others were militant, like the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the African Pioneer Movement, the Black Muslims, the Five Percenters, the Hebrew Israelites, and the Black Nationalists. With these groups came many would-be messiahs, prophets, Mahdis, saviors, leaders, and even some called themselves God and Allah. We had all kinds of ministers, pastors, reverends, rabbis, Kohanes, imams, sheikhs. Yet, our condition stayed the same. We may appear to be doing good under a specific leader, but in all cases, all of the above were depending on others for guidance, and borrowing from each other. Either they used the Caucasian, King James Version of the Bible, or a Jewish translation of the Holy Scripture, or a Pale Arab's translation of the Quran, or a Zionist Jew named Levi H. Dowling's book The Aquarian Gospel and changed it into a Quran for the Moorish Science Temple. Others depended on what they call Pale Arab interpretation of Islam, or from lessons that W.F. Muhammad wrote, and from it a Nuwaubian gave birth to a splinter group called Five Percenters, and he declared himself Allah using this Pale Arab's lessons. This was Clarence 13X. All in all, Nuwaubians fell deeper and deeper into ignorance. It was a case of the blind leading the blind. But all knew that a savior was coming. Some thought it was Marcus Garvey who wanted to go back to Africa, others thought Noble Drew Ali, others thought it was Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or his teacher W.F. Muhammad, others thought it was Clarence 13X, even others thought it was Dr. Martin Luther King, some said it was H. Rap Brown or Stokely Carmichael from the 60s, or Eldridge Cleaver or Bobby Seale, some thought it was Ron Karenga, or Leroy Jones, some think it's Worth B. Muhammad, son of Elijah Muhammad, others think it's Minister Louis Farrakhan or Yahweh Ben Yahweh or Ben Amir Carter. And even others think it is themselves, and the list of saviors goes on. From the early 1900s all the way up to 1975 AD when something new happened. A teaching unlike before started spreading. It started with the awareness of our culture and identity, an awakening all around the globe with the only barriers of language and religion. There was a wave of riots everywhere which only added to the tension. And the formation of organizations like the Black Panthers founded by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale for a never-ending struggle for the liberation of Nuwaubians. This made way for the first part of our liberation by way of Nuwaupu. What I have to give would liberate the mind of the Nuwaubian nation, and the physical will follow, because once there is mental unity there is physical unity, because where the mind goes the body will follow. This too was a part of the preparation for my appearance. Others like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Martin Luther King were concerned with the upliftment and sense of pride in Nuwaubian people, and the beginnings of a doctrine. Not knowing who we were or where we came from and where we are going. The time was now. Right truth has come to put all false things under your feet. With a doctrine to give you the power to test all who stand in front of you. And dares to claim they have the truth. I am here amongst you to take you by the hand and lead you to that which was promised you. You should feel a comfort being with me. I truly know the way out of the hell you Nuwaubians have been in for 6,000 years, how to break the spell. For all who will listen. It is through right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right understanding, which is the science of Nuwaupu. Don't turn away from your last chance of salvation. This is the book that will solve the problem book. I say test me and you will see who I really am. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be open unto you. Simply ask, seek, knock. Merely ask, for I am your long-awaited Savior. It is my voice that roars with the sound of many waters saying these things. I say unto you who are faithful and true, I am the Melchizedek of all the holy prophets. Allah has sent me to give good tidings, to prepare the way for HaMashiach or El Masa, the real Messiah, and to show you things which must shortly come to pass, and prepare a way straight for him. For I have declared in my very own scroll, the scroll of Malachi. In this scroll I am known as the Allahum Mika-El, also known as Marduk, Amar Utu, Atsog and Amun Nubi Ruach Patah. The grandson of the Most High El, the Heavenly One Anu, who is the warring Allahum, whose name Mika-El means who dares be like El, a repeated incarnation from shell to shell, who fights on behalf of Anu, Alyun El, the Most High. Behold, I have been sent to prophesy before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahuwah. Before me was Elijah. Elijah is the reverse of Yahuwah Allahum, El Elo. The Allahum Yahuwah is the manifestation in the form of perfection. He is the Elijah for this day and time. For there were many, but because you are not ready for the many, such as Elijah the Tishbite, of the book of 1 Kings degree 18. Then again in a second incarnation, John the son of Zechariah, called the Baptist, who was not aware whom he was. And a third incarnation as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was the third Elijah sent to prepare the way for myself, Malachi. Each of these was not the final Elijah because you were not willing to accept him. But it was all necessary for the preparation of what I am teaching you now for your overstanding and acceptance. I had to take you through several schools of learning before I could get you to this point to get all the stories and names correct in your head. You will become sons of the Allahum back into the family of the Allahum after the order of Melchizedek. New words were introduced and people grabbed onto them quickly, and started calling themselves Nuwaubians, instead of black this or black that, or Afro this, or Afro that. You are Nuwaubians, you are originally from Nubia. You have your own language Nuwaubic. You have your own dress and culture. You now have everything you need to go on to the next level. I came giving you what you wanted, Ilum, so that you would learn to want what I really have to give. Now you have learned to want what I have to give. The name Nuwaubian started spreading throughout the Western Hemisphere. You wore nose rings, immediately nose rings became a trend. I said you wore braids, that too became a trend. I said you wore beads in your hair and beads on the braids became a trend. I said stop calling them white people. They're not white, they are lepers, that too became a trend for all Nuwaubian leaders. The curse of Canaan, the Amorite, the 400-year bondage, as opposed to the 400-year bondage of Israel. Everybody would start to pick out of the things that were being said, never knowing that the hope had arrived. The facts beyond any doubt had finally come. And this mysterious spell called the spell of Leviathan was about to be broken. A doctrine that all the previous leaders were feeding off of, and pretending that it was theirs, came like a thief in the night, rose up from in your midst. Yet in return for these facts there was only slander, much gossip, much hearsay. They sent out their best. First the leaders would try their futile attacks on what he had to say, only to be put in check immediately. Next they called the Arabs. Go prove him wrong. They came only to leave with their tail between their legs, and with such a fear of me, their only thoughts were, we must kill him. They attempted to approach it from an Arabic standpoint, and it was met with Arabic in its purest form. They came with Hebrew, that too was met. Deep in their hearts and in the hearts of their followers, they began to realize that the time had finally come. A revelation was now in order. The events of the enslavement and the abuse is scriptural as the abuse of the Israelites in Egypt. And this is how and when it all began for us. The mission of our master teacher formed in the late 1960s AD under the name Amun Nubi Ruach Patah, an unknown writer of the science of New Wabu. Knowing the New Wabians weren't ready for that level of information as of yet, I started teaching under the name Imam Isa, for Muslims seemed to be the most influential movements of that time and didn't dare question each other. I set up the headquarters, which was located in Brooklyn, New York and began in an apartment building on 2525 Bedford Avenue in 1967 AD. During this time, I named my mission Ansar Pure Sufi, with usage of the six-pointed star and crescent with an ankh inside. Our official garb at this time was a black tunic, we called a budla, and black loose-fitting pants, with a tarbush and shoes which became known as Romeos. This was in the year 1967 AD. Then the dress changed to African robes and the people, we called ourselves the Nuwabians. This was in the year 1968 to 1969 AD. In 1969 AD the group metamorphized to the Nuwabian Islamic Hebrews. And the dress changed to a more elaborate style of a dashiki, a black fez and a small bone in the left ear for those who wished to wear it, and a ring in the right nostril. In 1970 AD the Nuwabian Islamic Hebrews were founded as an official sect and communal living was set. Also in the year 1970 AD, the small flock moved to a house on Neptune Avenue and 23rd Street, in Coney Island, and opened the Pure Sufi bookstore on 720 Flatbush Avenue, and the layout and printing shop was 492 Flatbush Avenue, right down the block. 2813 West 29th Street served as a meeting place and lecture hall, which was my home in Coney Island. We then relocated and opened a masjid on 222 Utica Avenue. This was a very spiritual period and many angelic visitors manifested themselves to the growing congregation. Our community was expanding so rapidly, we had to move again in 1972 AD, this time to 452 Rockaway Avenue, where classes were held in what we called the upper room. The next move took us to Carroll Street, where a candy store was opened. Later that year the masjid was re-established at 838 St. John's Place and a bookstore was opened. I began publishing the pamphlets of peace. I wrote, typed, illustrated, reproduced and distributed them almost single-handedly. I diligently treaded the streets of New York and the surrounding areas as I propagated Sufi Islam. I was blessed with the gift of gab, combined with a sense of humor and charisma that draws people of all walks of life to me. People began to wonder who this man, who spoke so profoundly and so persistently on many subjects which were previously considered unmentionable. At first, many people joined the mission because it was the style, to be black and cultural. I drew many hypocrites, phonies who just wanted to play Muslim. They didn't want to work to build a nation. They just wanted to dress in African clothing, play drums and listen to me speak. I called them the first fruits. They were faithful, but not true. In 1972 AD, after returning from Sudan, I drew a literal line on the masjid floor, and said, those who wanted their culture, but did not want to sacrifice to build for the future were excluded. The mission was then carried on by those who were willing to work for the perfection. The mission expanded and moved to a new headquarters in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn, originally occupying one building Bushwick Avenue, and then adding on more buildings as time passed until it had grown to a village which presently exists on Bushwick Avenue till this day. Our mission has obtained all its assets through sacrificing without the aid of outside funds. We've established many businesses within our community structure. Immediately the jealousy and the hatred started. The slander was on the lips of those who could not quite understand where we came from. We donned black tarbushes and our symbol was simply a crescent, a six-pointed star and an egg. We propagated daily, we walked the trains, throughout the buses on all the college campuses. Our message of the Nuwabian Islamic Hebrews, Ansaru Allah community could be heard. The Nuwabians that were following Orthodox Islam, or many of the other groups, would simply say, if you ignore them they will just go away, they are just a schism. They won't last, we are the true nation, we have the right way. However, as time has proven, they are the ones that have fallen away. Their leaders took them absolutely nowhere. As they watched the Ansaru Allah community grow worldwide, a link was made with the Ansars of the Sudan known as the Madiyya, which welcomed the Ansars of the Western Hemisphere. At this point we were wearing what had been established as the international garb of the Ansaru Allah community, which consisted of the thawb, dress and kamar, face veil for the female. This face veil, which was not a part of the Sudanese original dress, was introduced by the women of the community, who mostly left immediately after and went back to wearing Western attire, leaving the devoted women behind veiled. I told them the day would come when this veil would have to be removed while living in the West, and it has. And the jalabiya, a long white garment, and pantaloon, loose-fitting pants, and imma, head covering for the male with an azuba. This angered them more, for it legitimized the Ansaru Allah community as being linked to their ancestors in Nubia and one family. But our teachings were still in a baby stage and was growing to adolescence rapidly. We were unique because no human being can find fault in it. There is no confusion in it. Then on into adulthood, our code of dress changed from time to time, to suit the time we were in. Our garb had mutated again in the year 1992 AD, to the kathnuath, tunic and pantaloon, loose-fitting pants with a sash around the waist in various colors for the male, and the budla nubi of the female, which also consists of a tunic and pantaloon and a shawl as a head covering of many colors. And the information that was being taught, believing that you must be submerged into the environment of what you're being taught fully, was completed. This again made the fools raise their eyebrows, and say of us, "I told you, they didn't know what they were doing, they keep changing. They used to wear veils, now they don't." Not one of them was intelligent enough to see that this change was their great chance, for they said, "Those people, those Ansars, they're not real Muslims, Allah does not accept their prayers, or their fasting, and they're not going to Jannah, they worship that man, that disco singer Dr. York." Yet when the change came, they confessed to themselves and to the Ansaru Allah community that all the while they thought of us as Muslims, for they said, "I heard they don't fast Ramadan no more, I heard they don't make 5 daily prayers no more, and they destroyed the masjid, I heard their women no longer follow the dress of Al-Quran, they're taking off the veil, and their men no longer wear the jalabiyas and the immas, what happened to them?" The answer should have been simply, if we weren't Muslims, how could they ask these questions? They confirmed that they looked to us as living according to Al-Quran. Our children were raised speaking fluent classical Arabic, reading the Quran in Arabic, yet the Quran is a 1400-year-old book, and Islam is a 1400-year-old religion the way they practiced it. And was doing absolutely nothing to change the condition of the Nuwabian in the Western Hemisphere. They may put on a tagiyah, grow a beard, or shave their beard, put on oils from the East or robes from the East, prayer beads in their hands, and carry an English translation of the Quran, but the condition and the state of mind did not change. A sign that with all they had and have been exposed to, with all these teachers and saviors, they were still in need of right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right understanding. It is my job to reform all the false teachings that have been taught to Nuwabians in the West and restore Islam to its pristine purity. It is because of these false teachings of the so-called Arabs who deliberately mistranslated verses of the Quran to confuse non-Arabic speaking Nuwabians in the West. The time was right for this prepared savior, so we moved up into the Catskills Mountains of Liberty, New York, and set up what I called Jazarabba. And set up the 19 tests of 19 weeks of the faithful that would come through blizzards, to be taught once that was accomplished. The next move was to the Mecca of Nuwabians, Georgia. The dress then changed to Western attire in order to get everybody away from doing their own thing, those that truly follow the Lamb wherever he may lead them, trusted in him and wore Western clothes and even listened to country Western music, simply because he asked them to. And now the Holy Tabernacle Ministries is growing worldwide and the mission is being accomplished. Nuwabians are allowed to wear what they want. Whatever you wish to wear, is your choice. However, we give honor to our great ancestors, and therefore the men wear the Murduk braid, which is at the back of your head, called the faru, and the women also wear the faru, or the nindi braid, which is a braid that is an inch above the right ear. You can put beads on your nindi braids, or a gold band on your Murduk braid. We also wear the Balura bindi jewel in the middle of our foreheads, if you want. The letters are pouring in. Even the original followers are waking up. Many who followed other teachers, are finding their way to the Lamb. The sun is truly coming out of the east unto the west, and those who endure to the end are receiving the crown of life, in the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, where this message is coming forth to you in order to restore your identity as Nuwabians. Behold, the Son of Righteousness stands before you with the scroll of Malachi, that rebukes the liars for their transgressions, and who will prepare the way for the Messiah by turning the hearts of the fathers to the sons and the sons to the Father, or else I, Malachi, will strike the earth with utter destruction. Now you are ready to move on toward the next level, and ready to accept what I was giving you originally. A teaching that none could stand against. You were the meek that are here to dumbfound the wise. And so we are at the beginning again with Sufi and Fezes. Only now we are Sufi under the Amam, the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, the beginning of their end. You can't be fooled by any religious doctrines of any kind. No, not nowadays. You have your first tool, this holy tablet, not someone else's interpretation. your own scripture that will dispel all the lies causing all false things to perish, making the truth come to light. Let me speak to you of my arrival. You see, the first time I arrived, I came as a force, an etheric being. While my mother was pregnant, certain nerves in the brain of the child were altered, so that the child would be able to receive a higher intellect. An intellect higher than other normal earth beings who have had their parotid glands removed. The earth beings will one day have it replaced, if they don't destroy themselves. They will use more of their brains, for they have the light body, a physical body, a spiritual body, a mental body and an etheric body. My assignment is to spiritually re-educate the beings of the planet Earth, who are the children of the Anunnaki. And to prepare the 144,000, to be taken up for 1,000 years, then return to save this planet. Originally Earth was used as a hunting ground by the beings known as Amo, also called Shaggies. Earth was much like what you would call a resort today. Beings from other galaxies would come here to hunt. And so they looked at it, the light of 1,000 lights. Whoever saw his head is to become guides to the successor and Kohen priest among creatures. Whoever saw his forehead is to become just a Sar, prince. Whoever saw his eyes is to become one who preserves the word of Anu, who acts on the part of Anu, Alyun El when it's time to be felt in any way, shape or form. Whoever saw his eyebrows is to become a scribe. Whoever saw his ears is to become one who listens and occupies himself with that. Whoever saw his cheeks is to become one who is a teacher, knowing and having intellect. Whoever saw his lips is to become a Sar, prince. Whoever saw his nose is to become a Hatim, spiritual doctor, and whoever saw his mouth is to become one who recites. Whoever saw his teeth is to become one who is beautiful of heart among male and female living beings, to make others happy. Whoever saw his tongue is to become an apostle. Whoever saw his throat is to become one who admonishes and gives good counsel, and a cantor or one who calls the prayer. Whoever saw his beard is to become one full of wisdom in Anu, the source. Whoever saw his neck is to become a merchant. Whoever saw his arms is to become a warrior with a sword who does battle in the way of Anu, the source. Whoever saw his right arm only is to become a cupper. Whoever saw his left arm only is to become of the ignorant. Whoever saw his right palm only is to become a money changer and an embroiderer. Whoever saw his left palm only is to become a corn measurer. Whoever saw his hands is to become generous and ambidextrous. Whoever saw the backside of his left hand is to become a miser. Whoever saw the backside of his right hand is to become a cook. Whoever saw the tips of the fingers of his left hand is to become a musician. Whoever saw the fingers of his right hand only is to become a tailor. Whoever saw the fingers of his left hand only is to become an ironsmith. Whoever saw his chest is to become a noble and diligent one. Whoever saw his back is to become humble and obedient to the command of the tablets to be given as the 613 commandments, and those who can see will see. Whoever saw his side is to become argumentative. Whoever saw his abdomen is to become one who bows and prostrates often. Whoever saw his feet is to become a rug maker, and whoever saw under his feet is to become a shoemaker. Whoever saw his shadow is to become a builder of the holy places. Whoever saw nothing is to become one who conceals what he knows to be true or rejects the reality. Whoever will not look at him at all will cease to exist. He was, he is, and he will be in the end, having the holy tablets, the scroll of eyes and the key to time, and the power to hold back Halal, who is the one that was removed from the skies. This is the birth of Marduk, also known as Mikael, and Ya'anun, and his mystery name is Sabathil. He is the ruler of Malakut, the grandson of Anu. This is how it was recorded, and this is how it will be. The seven thunders, the seven plagues. The seven thunders have been recorded by the ancients for thousands of years, by the Hopis, the Yamasee, and the Nuwapians, who have logged these thunders as a sign of the coming of a new planet, Nibiru, the coming in of a new era, the sign of the end of the present world ruled by evil, and the resurrection of the ancient mysteries of Egypt, Atlantis rising again in the heart of Georgia, in a place called Wahani. These signs are the signs of the times, recorded by the ancient Neteru of ancient Egypt, and passed down through time. They are called the thunders, or the plagues. First thunder. Much starvation, sickness, starving children, homelessness, and diseases. This already passed and continues. Second thunder. The sky becomes sick with holes in it, that look like sores, lung disease spreads, breathing problems occur, green mist coming from holes, polluting water, growing deformities, bacteria in the water, little devils, sea animals begin to die, fishes are trying to get out of the water, water becomes death to them. Physical and spiritual illness, mutations in animals. Third thunder. Many new species notations in animals, crossbreeding in species, death of frogs, honeybees, turtles, deformed humans multiply, genetic splicing, and cloning. Fourth thunder. Sign of twins, Ya and Wei, one guards the South Pole, and the other guards the North Pole. Havoc begins with these poles, structures break down, religion, moral and financial. The devil wins, El Niño takes over. Fifth thunder. Four great people will perish. Floods, lightning storms, tornadoes, landslides, hurricanes, hail in the summer, forest fires, children killing their parents, rampant insanity and murders, and upsurge in drug addiction, and demonic revivals parading themselves as righteous. El Nina, little girl will come. Sixth thunder. Changes occur, the star people return. Signs in the skies, new planets, new galaxies, meteorite storms, climatic alterations, global warming, spiritual revivals, presence of divine, disregard and respect for present world governments, leadership, and politics. Seventh thunder. The end of the world as you know it. The year 2030.